Kamala was blasted for ignoring questions on Helene. That's actually going to be a transition into the topic of Hurricane Helene. So let's go now to the Fox News clip of allegedly presidential candidate dodging questions during a major disaster crisis in an area that does have a lot of blue in it.
So President Biden is on the move today. He's going to head to the near war zone conditions in our southeast. He's going to South Carolina. The storm hit Hurricane Helene last Thursday. So now nearly a week later, he will go. He's going to reportedly survey the devastation brought on by Helene, and the death toll now across 6 states is at least 166 people killed. Helene is now the second deadliest hurricane to hit U.S. mainland in a half century, the most deadly Hurricane Katrina. Steve Harrigan is live for us, just about 35 miles outside of Asheville, North Carolina, where those epic pictures of the impact there have been seen. Steve.
Harris, a lot of these smaller towns aren't getting much attention. Asheville's getting all the press, but things are remarkably bad here. There's a really all-volunteer fight going on, just friends and neighbors and people who live here to try and connect one side and to connect them across the river to the other side. That's really been a battle. You can't get vehicles through at this point. You said the death toll is higher than 160, and that's likely to keep going up. People here say it's going to go up much higher because many areas still so cut off. It's really people checking on neighbors by foot or by bicycle, going door to door. And people here tell us things have gotten so rough they are sharing water with each other.
We're sharing food, and water is now becoming available, but a lot of us had water on hand that we're sharing if needed. And then for flushing toilets, we're going down the street to the spring and collecting rainwater if it comes.
People hungry here, too, for information. They ask us, what's going on? When's it going to get better? They're using handheld radios to try to find out. Many here are aware that the president will be flying over some of the worst-hit areas this afternoon. Harris?
Well, you got in there, and I know that the president isn't as physically capable as you are, but it would be interesting if some more people could actually get into that area. And military could definitely airlift something into that area. We do it all over the world. Steve Harrigan, thank you. Brian, I'm sure people can hear this tone in my voice. It was last Thursday.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Not only that, okay, maybe the hurricane was not a surprise to anyone. Which state will hit the hardest? It looks like Florida is expected to hit hardest there. And maybe no one in North Carolina in the mountains thought that they were going to be water victims. And maybe they made some poor decisions. Having said that, having not been able to identify the problem, and I was just on the radio and took a ton of calls today, almost all of them for the hurricane. And people called me from the surrounding areas saying there's like 5 or 6 small towns outside Asheville, which he just talked about.
Yeah, he was in Maggie.
Are totally ignored, and they have not heard anything from the governor. They are now communicating through the handheld or the ham radios. So there's a huge problem. And if anybody should know optics, wouldn't it be somebody that's been in politics for 50 years?
Yes.
Why would he even think about leaving the mansion? The White House, is it that bad of a place to spend a weekend there?
You know
so
what?
Just to be in headquarters and show you're engaged, throw in a windbreaker.
That is so interesting what you're saying. And Kaylee, I thought of it this way, just to further what Brian is saying. As you were talking, I was thinking, well, what younger person, other than the 81-year-old man, could go to this and maybe cross that bridge, because she's a year younger than I am, I know I could do it, and go to some of these areas, right? That bully pulpit. But my gosh, grab a gallon of something and take it with you and be part of the, Oh, you mean the vice president who still technically has a job? By the way, she's going to Georgia today. I hope she pops by the Savannah, Georgia port that shut down because of the strike. Lots of picketers. I call on those people. Do a good deed today and help.
Yeah, a lot of problems in the Biden-Harris watch. Brian, I mean, to your point, would we expect anything different? Biden left the White House during the fall of Afghanistan and then had to go to Camp David from Delaware and then finally got back to the White House. You know, FEMA, we saw Kamala Harris there Monday, and it's this big, long table. And I've been there at these same briefings, and you have the nameplates there, and there's Kamala Harris at this briefing. And the sign behind her said, helping people before, during, and after disaster. And I got to thinking about that. Okay, well, before, Governor DeSantis said, yes, I got everything I needed from Biden. Kemp got a call from Biden. Before, they did deploy resources. They get credit for that. But before, during, And then almost to after, indeed to after, Biden was in Delaware. Kamala Harris was at a fundraiser. If I were advising her, I would have given her a call and said, get back here Saturday morning, come from the border. I want to see you in FEMA headquarters, and then we're sending you to Georgia once the damage has passed. We did not see her before, during. We're just now seeing her after.
Let's go back to that moment on Monday, because we have Kamala Harris ignoring reporter questions at the FEMA briefing.
I would ask if we could excuse you for a moment.
Madam Vice President.
This way. Come on. This way. Let's go. This way.
Unmatched by the moment, how would you describe it, Emily?
Horrifyingly inadequate.
Expect more of that, regardless of who's sitting around those tables. It seems to be a popular thing these days. Now, there are people who are still in distress. We're over a week into it. The airborne, we got soldiers going in today. As of like 12 hours ago, government was finally around. They figured we do have some resources. We have some heavy equipment, might be useful. The thought finally occurred to them to get orders and bureaucracy. We're going to see some clips on that. You're going to see a soldier tonight who basically says they can't do anything unless they're ordered to. And instead of autonomous units of helpers being allowed to go around and do what humans do, help each other out, the bureaucracies at the various levels, town, county, state, federal, all seem aligned on one thing to get in the way and make sure that people can't do the autonomous thing and just help each other out and start using their own tools to clear roads and things like that because somebody else got the contract for that, or no, you can't bring in food because these people have the contract for bringing in food. There's a lot of that going on. And when people need to be helped, when life is on the line, red team and blue team goes out the window. And so does what do things cost? Because if you look at just like the response, they knew there was a storm that was going to hit. Florida had taken care of itself. DeSantis is really good. Like, we should have him as like in charge of emergencies, but not the other presidential stuff because he can't handle that. But he's good on the emergency tip. He does a good job for his people, and he had extra to send to North Carolina and be a leader and lead by example. In that case, that's what makes him a leader, not his the height extensions he wears. What do they call it? Lifts? Not that. That doesn't make you a leader. The camera adjusts down if you're shorter. It's a magical thing. Everyone kind of looks the same height on TV, so he shouldn't worry about that. But as far as the emergency response, there's a lot lacking. You're going to see evidence tonight, not of incompetence, of possible malfeasance and other agendas that are going on. And that is sad. And in the middle of all those agendas, people have just lost everything. They're headed into winter. They're very desperate. And then there's other people who have a little extra and are prepared and know how to go in and do the things and bring the tools. And those people are being prevented actively for a long time in the most important hours after the disaster, especially being prevented from doing it. Now that it's like people have died and the death count has gone up because of the inactivity, like the inactivity killed maybe as many people as the flood, because there were a lot of people who could have been rescued had the resources available at the federal level been marshaled in any way, shape, or form. We, as the United States government, we the people, we own thousands and thousands of helicopters. Why didn't we, like, who's in charge representing us to call these things in? The equipment exists, the manpower exists, the heavy equipment exists, and could have been headed that way for that occasion within hours after seeing what was going on. But it takes a full week for anyone to really get a fire under their ass. I mean, you could tell a lot of people from DC don't have second houses in that part of North Carolina, just from the response. And people being driven out forever is becoming a theme in these disaster situations.
Yeah, it really truly is, man. And this just really breaks my heart because I've been really involved in the reporting of the Maui fires because Shelby from Unjected lives on Maui. So she was on the front lines, and we're seeing, I helped edit and write a book right here, Build Back Better, or Burn Back Better, excuse me, the Lahaina storm. So I helped write and edit this book, co-authored by Shelby. And it's like, so I'm very, very well spoken on every single aspect of that whole story. And it's like, we're seeing the exact same thing. There's so many tie-ins that are exactly the same. It's like, I heard firsthand reports of like just in one region outside the morgue, they had large containers to hold the bodies in. So they're saying like 212 or like, death count.
Yeah.
They're saying there's that many in like one area.
Yeah.
It's like such an incredibly underreported death count, which lends itself to, it gives the government, it doesn't make the government look as bad in their disaster response, right? You have government preventing people from helping. We get lots of reports of that. The governments are creating roadblocks to prevent people from escaping danger areas. The $700 to $750 payments, land being reclaimed by governments, like already, no effort to rebuild. Like Lahaina is still in ruins right now. There's been no effort to go in. In fact, the very first thing they did in Lahaina, like overnight, this is the craziest thing ever, is they built like a 12-foot, I've seen it. I flew out to Maui and I saw it firsthand. Like overnight, they built like a 12-foot wall with black, or like a fence with black, like screening over it so you couldn't see in. And they lined the road with these giant white boulders so cars couldn't drive in. So all of their efforts in the very beginning were to make it as inaccessible as possible to anybody possible. That was their first priority, was to section it off as a crime scene. And so I would imagine that as this goes forward, that's what's going to be happening, is that we're going to see this basically treated like a crime scene. You know what I mean?
It is standard protocol, Scott, to cordon off the crime scene and protect it.
Yeah.
But it's usually not being run by the people who created the crime scene in the first place, because they're going to destroy the evidence. And that's the other side of CSI they don't show you, kids.
Yeah. So it just rings so many alarm bells of just exactly what we went through and exactly what we've seen and what Shelby was reporting, boots on the ground for the last year, over a year now. And it's just like, here we go again. And so if we're seeing the same, like if we're going to have a government at all, which is arguable, right? This is what they should be the best at. The absolute best. Yes. Yeah. So it's just so, to me, it just, at this point, I have lots more to say, and we'll get, as we unpack the story tonight. But to me, it's beyond like a demoralization campaign, a humiliation ritual. This is them making very clear that they don't care about us. And I mean, how could you interpret it any differently, man? If you, like, they should just say, hey, everybody, here's $1 million, right? Or something, you know what I mean? Something
sorry,
like
we sent that to Ukraine.
Yeah,
Wrong address.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Address,
like,
bro.
I'm just saying, like, and I'm getting worked up, because that is the goal of them doing it, is for people like me to get worked up, so that you all listening to this all get worked up. I mean, that's the goal. That's what's happening right now, man. So it's just so.
Well, I do have a clip in one of these blocks that's going to help you get unworked up about it. It's not only going to tell you like what those people need, but it's going to tell you like what you might need in a situation like this, so you could just have it on hand and help yourself and your neighbors, because you're going to have about a week to get acquainted, because comms are going to be down, electricity is going to be out, you're going to need water, and people are going to have to work together, or they're going to hear your loud gas generator running and they're going to be real desperate, and you're going to wish you had muffled it or bought some solar stuff ahead of time. So anyway, you need to learn how to think these things through before they happen, if you don't want to be in a panicky situation and being part of the problem. So we're going to get into this Hurricane Helene block. We're going to look at some of the local news from that area, official reports, these sort of things. And then we're going to get into, again, when I show you these things, it's not because I believe them or believe them before I watch them. I'm incredulous. And when people make claims about like weather modification or lithium mines, I'm like, come on. But I remember doing that exact same come on when Benny Wills told me that Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum ran some sort of campaign, right? Practice session called Event 201 before COVID. I was like, no way. That's so cliche. Bill Gates. He would never. Oh, well, they definitely did that. Maybe I should keep an open mind, because we have entered the area of, in Spaceballs, they went past light speed, they went plaid. And yeah, sometimes the things clash together. You're going so fast in this historical environment. So let's get to CBS News 17, Helene damage in old fort in McDowell County. Because some of this stuff, when they say apocalyptic in reports, like, I don't know if you know what that means. If, this looks very similar. I'm not saying it is or was some sort of nuclear blast, but the everything flattenedness for such a wide expanse area kind of reminds me of that. And in history, I believe they did actually drop 2 nuclear bombs on North Carolina accidentally. One of them was lost for a while. So that's just a little bit of history about our arsenals out there. You're going to learn about things being taken to the arsenal, like your insulin, the diapers, the water you sent down there, trying to get it to loved ones or other people that need help, and how sheriffs might be sequestering those supplies, and there might be power trips going on, and people might be getting in the way. So we're going to learn about that too as we go. But we'll start first with the official news of the tragic aftermath after Hurricane Helene.
The work to recover from Helene will take months, even years, for people living in the western part of our state.
CBS 17's Lance Blocker spent today talking to people in one of the hardest hit areas, and this is video of that area right now. And tonight he is live from about 14 miles west in an area called Old Fort. And Lance, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, we're still seeing a lot of the same destruction. We've been watching this play out over the last day or so since we've been across this area. You can see here, we're in Old Fort. We're on the bridge right here. This is actually a piece of somebody's house. Look at the brick here that traveled along the water flow, and then check out the cars here as well as this flood of water just ferociously moved through the area, mangling everything in sight. It was certainly a very rough and destructive and scary scene as this played out. Earlier this afternoon, we talked to Jason, who's the camp director here at Camp Greer, and he shared this about his experience living through Helene.
At about 8:30 or 9 o'clock, we had a tree just come straight down on top of that house where I was sitting. Got outside in my truck, put on my climbing helmet, and just hope for the best.
What was that feeling? You got your helmet on, you're in that, some of the feelings and emotions that you were having during that period?
Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, I wasn't feeling a whole lot. I was just trying to look around and try to, you know, we'd already had one tree fall in the house at that point. I was looking at the other trees, trying to keep my eyes on the trees and my eyes on the water. And so I didn't really have time to have a lot of feeling about it. I just knew, like, this is really bad. And I was just trying to think through, like, okay, what am I going to do next?
And that was, again, that's Jason. He's one of the camp directors here at Camp Greer, and that was, they're one of the hardest hit areas. We're here in Old Fort. You can see crews still driving around, checking out the area. A lot of catastrophic issues here. They're still trying to restore power, water, and all of the essential services. So a long way of recovery to go, but people are working hard, and most importantly, they're working together. So we'll continue to keep you updated here from Old Fort. This is meteorologist Lance Blocker. We'll send it back to you guys in studio.
Allies, who along with his team is conducting rescue missions in North Carolina, western North Carolina. Tim Kennedy. Tim, this place is very close to my heart, and I can say the government and FEMA and anybody to do with, like, bureaucracy is not helping western North Carolina. It is private citizens and people like you carting supplies and running rescue missions in choppers. Tell us about the devastation that you have seen.
I mean, I can't describe it, and I second those sentiments. It's so frustrating. I'm going to try to keep it together, frankly.
Don't.
It was a long night last night.
Just.
You know,
don't.
It's unfair. Save our allies. You know, we shouldn't be having to do this. There were Operation Airdrop. There were dozens of helicopters, all private pilots, paying for the fuel themselves to get there and to fly. And, you know, we had guys that were taking skids and sticking them in the side of mountains. We checked on a 91-year-old man. He'd been there by himself for 5 days. His wife died last year. Dog died a few months ago, and he was alone. He had no idea if he's ever going to see anyone. He had no idea if his neighbors were still alive. And that was the best case scenario. This should not fall on Americans, but my heart is full to see Americans rise to the occasion like they always do, but it's not our responsibility to have to go and answer the call like this. Jumping out of helicopters as skids are just floating off the ground. You know, Save Our Allies has so many important relationships within the government that enable us to do these expeditionary missions. And we're so grateful for those partnerships that we're able and have the opportunity to do these, but it shouldn't be necessary. Where is the federal response and the plan and the incident command center that should be running all of this?
So, Tim, I think this is the best of America, right? When people help their neighbors. If you're in a place of need without food or water or electricity or communication, these choppers coming in have to be, angel craft coming in and providing aid to the people in so much need. So thank you for doing that. And thanks to all the pilots and people who have given and made this happen. I guess to the point of FEMA, which, by the way, should have been a question last night in the debate, and it was not. Have you seen FEMA responding? Is there a command center? Is FEMA on the ground? I mean, because this happened on Friday. It's now Wednesday. Are they still not there anywhere? What are you seeing from FEMA in the federal response, if any?
I mean, they're present. They're in the way. They are directly interrupting our ability to conduct missions and operations. And I'm not going to disparage anybody, because we are trying to work within partner relationships, both government and non-government entities within state and federal and county. I went to put a couple of people into a hotel last night, and they have a security guard at the hotel, and they said, "Oh, we're so sorry. The entire hotel has been booked for federal employees." And I was like, no, I have people that would just pull it out of a mountain that are living out in the hills, and there's not a place for me to put them because we have federal employees that are staying in the hotel. I slept in this white car last night. I smell like foot and death right now, as does every single person on our team. Not a single one of us slept. We got done maybe at 3 o'clock the moment the sun was up and we could fly helicopters again. We were back in the air, and we have not stopped. And I was like on the fence about trying to get on this program or not. I want people to understand how incredible this organization is, Save Our Allies, and all the work that all of these volunteers are doing. But people, this is biblical level devastation. This is apocalyptic, the things that we see out there.
These are towns up in the mountains that are 10, 20, 40 miles away from any other town. And people on the ground like you need helicopters from the government, and they will not release them. I have heard that time and again. And the people who are delivering aid up in the mountains are now getting requests for body bags. Tim, we got to run.
You are 100% correct. Oh, you're right about that. And there was a no-fly when the president flew in today. We had to land helicopters to not go rescue people so a photo op could take place. And that's a travesty, and that's unconscionable.
If people want to donate, is it saveourallies.com?
That's right. And if somebody is stuck somewhere, or you know somebody that's stuck, you can go to saveourallies.org, and you can click on there. Let us know. We have people going all over in the places that can't be reached. That's why we have special operations people working with partnerships to get into those areas. So go there, support that organization, and also let us know where to go.
Tim Kennedy, you are a great American. Thank you. And I know all of this devastated area thanks you, and Save Our Allies as well. We appreciate you being on the program and just taking a couple moments out of rescuing people to tell us the story. Thank you, Tim Kennedy.
We have a real problem with the storm, and the aftermath of the storm is the authorities, the control figures are getting in here and stopping the beautiful neighbor helping neighbor that I saw before. People are so ego-rich and so control-oriented for their little party that the very people that are supposed to be humanitarian effort, helping everybody in need, and there's a lot of people in need, they are the problem now, and that's just really sad. It's sick. So the people that are supposed to be coming here to help to the Appalachian Mountains, they're actually literally killing people by keeping aid to getting to them, by stopping them, threatening arrest, just telling them no, go away, go home. It's really sad, it's really unfortunate, and I think that it may be a pattern with a lot of the government intervention aid.
Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas sounding the alarm on FEMA funding right after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Listen.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
This all comes as the Biden-Harris administration spent over $1 billion from a FEMA program on services for migrants.
Breaking news. If this doesn't lose the election for the Democrats, I don't know what will. How in the F do we not have money for natural disasters that have occurred in this country, but we got money for illegals? Wait till you hear where they wasted our money and now we don't have resources for natural disasters. This video is brought to you by TatumStore.com, TatumStore.com. Wicked Witch of the left make sure you get you one of these shirts so you can go trick-or-treating if you trick-or-treat with one of these Kamala shirts. I think it's absolutely hilarious. Somebody at the gym literally said, man, I love that shirt that you just made. It's called Witch24 for 20% off. Link will be there. I mean, the discount will pop up here. Link will be in the description section. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you get notifications. Anytime I go live or make a video, make sure you still subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Let's get into this. Hey, so if you guys want to help in the effort to help the hurricane victims here, Donald Trump has made an authorized donation GoFundMe, and they've had 31,000 people donate. We donated $1,000 as a group, and he's already up to 4.6 million. So if you want to get on here, the link will be in the description section. Go on and donate and support some of the top donors. But that's 500,000. Senator Kelly Loeffler donated 500,000. Steve donated 500,000. Bass Pro Shop donated 100,000. Dana White donated 100,000. I think you have Kid Rock down here donated 20,000. We didn't make this list, but we donated 1,000. So if you want to support, the link will be in the description section. Ladies and gentlemen, if this don't tick you off and make you want to pull your hair out, and it's no way in the world the Democrats are going to win the election after this. It's no way they should. Do you know what kind of governmental failure this is? And then this is what we're talking about when we talk about the border and resources. And they poo-poo us. There's tons of videos of Kamala saying, there's no invasion. The Republicans are making this up. All right.
Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas sounding the alarm on FEMA funding right after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Listen.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
This all comes as the Biden-Harris administration spent over $1 billion from a FEMA program on services for migrants.
All right, that's it. That's it. Spend over $1 billion of a FEMA program for migrants. And then when we have a catastrophe, we don't have no money. They're giving billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, but FEMA is struggling with finances. That's insane. That is insane.
Attorney General of the great state of Florida, Ashley Moody, joins me now. AG Moody, why does the Biden-Harris administration always seem to help American taxpayers last?
Good morning, Todd. Yeah, everyone should be waking up this morning outraged by that comment. This is not something that has just happened recently, and Florida's been warning about this since this administration took over. Mayorkas has come in like a virus and infected these what need to be healthy, strong, fundamental programs to ensure the stability and safety of Americans in times of disaster. So you heard, they have taken the FEMA Emergency Food and Shelter Program and over time siphoned off hundreds of millions of dollars into basically making it an illegal immigrant resettlement program. And so when you see these states and cities around the nation declaring emergencies, even blue states, because of what this administration has done, encouraging more and more and more, developing programs to encourage more and more and more people to come here, the government, Biden and Harris, are having to fund that on the backs of the American people. And now, right now, when Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, all of these states are hurting because of this truly natural disaster, not a Biden-Harris made disaster, they're saying we need more money. And of course they need more money because they've been laundering it from the true intended purpose of this fund that Congress set forth. Laws be damned.
There's two things going on here. We just touched upon the main thing, this horrific prioritization of migrants over American taxpayers. But there's also something else here. What does this say about the Biden-Harris administration's ability to just lead? If they underfunded FEMA this much, and we are not even close to being in the heart of hurricane season, which in reality is August, September, October, and November, A.G. Moody.
Look, this is what President Trump did so well while in office. He could get to a 30,000-foot level, look at the health of American agencies and programs, determine what the problems were, and enlist resources, talented individuals and a strategy to put Americans and the safety and strength of this nation first. I've seen it work here in Florida with Governor DeSantis. We decide where our problems are, we set forth to fix them, and we make sure not only money, but the strategy and talented personnel are in place to fix them. So, for example, when you have a disaster like this, and you know when there's no electricity, instability, when there's people needing just the basics of life because of a disaster. I was with officers the other night, and we surged our resources in vulnerable areas to looting. We made sure officers knew what to look for when it was in complete darkness.
Right.
They knew what to charge. We make sure our state attorneys know to hold these people so they don't get back out and start ravaging these communities again. It takes proactive efforts, and you just do not see this out of this administration. And here, and the roosters of coming home to roost, look at what's happening right now.
The Florida model
when
really,
we're in the middle of a disaster with this administration at the helm.
You're right. The Florida model really does need to be a 50-state solution. Just want to mention this. You all launched an anti-looting team in response to Hurricane Helene, coming as 8 migrant workers are arrested in Tennessee, accused of stealing from flooded buildings. You guys do it right down there. I would just add, only a depraved person steals from someone in their time of need. AG Ashley Moody, thank you for your time. Thanks for doing what you're doing down there in Florida.
I'm Steve Ducey.
All right. If that don't make Americans upset, I don't know what will. The mismanagement of funds, the mismanagement of prioritizing taxpayer dollar, the not giving an F about these things is bewildering me. I do not understand how we even let these incompetent people run our country. They're going to run us into the ground and we never get. It's like our country is a business. We're going to end up going bankrupt and going out of business completely and being overtaken by somebody else if we don't get our act together. There's wars all over the country, all over the world. People are struggling financially because of policy decisions, not because of ebb and flows of the economy. That happens. It's a direct correlation to poor policies and poor leadership by the administration, where one person is dead, the other one is stupid. I don't know how people are voting for these individuals. Illegal aliens in our country.
Former President Trump was the first leader to travel to assess the damage, arriving in Georgia last week to help relief efforts, 2 days before President Biden and Vice President Harris decided to visit the Southeast to survey the damage.
Our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved.
Joining me now in the Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is former Hawaii Congresswoman and member of Trump's transition team, Tulsi Gabbard, who has been on the ground in North Carolina and Georgia helping the victims of Hurricane Helene. Tulsi, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Thanks, Maria.
Can you tell us what you have been experiencing and assess the situation from the ground?
It was heartbreaking there to see how many people still have been forgotten. And this is difficult to capture in words when you see entire towns and entire communities have literally disappeared with their lives, their homes, their businesses, their entire life savings swept away in this 20-foot wall of water that went through their communities. The sad thing is, Maria, I look back to what happened in Maui during the wake of the tragic historic fires there and the many layers of failures that came from FEMA. And I'm seeing the exact same thing play out here today. While Vice President Harris and Joe Biden claim to be doing all they can and providing all the resources possible, FEMA is out on the ground, they say, but when you go out into these rural communities, they have yet to see anyone with a FEMA jacket on knocking on their door saying, how can we help you? It is a slap in the face to these Americans to also then hear how the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security is saying, sorry, we don't have enough money because we are providing hundreds of millions of dollars to illegal immigrants and providing them with free rent, free housing, free food, and other entitlements. Meanwhile, these people have lost their homes, they've lost their vehicles, they've lost their businesses, and they're wondering how they're going to get by to tomorrow, what to speak of next week, next month, and next year. There are such a huge laundry list of the needs that they have. You look at power. So many of these communities are still without power. There are many small towns with hundreds or maybe 1,000 people who live in these towns. As you're seeing here in these images, they have yet to be able to get the power they need to be able to get access to water and water pumps and wells. They are wondering, where is FEMA? Where are the Army Corps of Engineers? Why haven't people come out there and started to do the necessary work that the volunteer firefighters are unable to do themselves? They're doing all that they possibly can, and they're wondering, where is our government? Why are they not here for us? This is just another example, unfortunately, of Vice President Harris and Joe Biden's American people come last policies, and we're feeling it firsthand.
It's so troubling, and I know, thank God for you and your nonprofit and all the other nonprofits out there, because they're not getting the help from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, that's for sure. The update that we have is that your nonprofit has raised $200,000 from 2,064 individuals. Donations continue to come in. The White House is trying to tell us that no, this is two different pools of money. We didn't use FEMA money for the illegals, but Karine Jean-Pierre actually told us what they were doing back in 2022. Watch this. It's absolutely outrageous. Listen.
FEMA regional administrators have been meeting with city officials on site to coordinate available federal support from FEMA and other federal agencies. Funding is also available through FEMA's emergency food and shelter program to eligible local governments and non-for-profit organizations upon request to support humanitarian relief for migrants. We'll continue to do what we can as a federal government to support these cities as we rebuild our asylum processing system after it was gutted by the Trump administration.
Yeah, there you go. Busted and busted again, Tulsi. She just told us what she was doing in 2022. They've actually cleaned out the money because they gave it to illegals. Is this incompetence, or do they just not care?
You know, we can't say that this incompetence, because incompetence implies that you do care and you've made your best effort, but you have failed. They have made very clear their priorities all along. And unfortunately, it's the American people and our fellow Americans who are in the most dire need in this moment of disaster who are feeling the consequences of that. They've created these open borders. They've provided our taxpayer dollars. You've seen how people are saying, yeah, you know, I get up to 2 years of free rent. They're giving me money for food, and they're giving me money to support the family, coming from illegal immigrants who are saying this. That's coming from this Harris-Biden administration. My heart broke over and over again, Maria, as I was speaking to these families who've poured their life savings into their little local small business, into building a life in these small rural communities there in the mountains of North Carolina. And they literally have absolutely nothing and don't even know whether insurance will cover it. Many of them don't even have insurance because they don't get these kinds of floods there. This is the kind of assistance that FEMA exists for, to be able to provide support to our fellow Americans in their greatest time of need. And bottom line is, they're not there for them.
Unbelievable. Congresswoman, let me just ask you this, because you were a Democrat at one point. You have been traveling the country with Bobby Kennedy. You saw Elon Musk yesterday with President Trump. Do you believe that the GOP is expanding its tent under President Trump?
Yes. The short answer is yes. You know, when I joined the Democratic Party over 20 years ago, one of the reasons why I joined that party was because it was a big open tent party that stood up for free speech and civil liberties and welcomed people from different backgrounds. It was a party that stood for peace. You fast forward to where we are today. Now, that party is no longer recognizable, and you have, under President Trump's leadership, what is now a big open tent party where people are welcomed in, not because
to her point, it has kind of flipped, because who did Dick Cheney endorse?
Exactly.
Not necessarily something you want to brag about. He shot someone in the face and got away with it one time. Did you know that? Remember that one?
I remember that one. Yeah.
He got the guy to apologize to him too. That's fucking ballsy right there. Let me see, because I was, I wasn't drawing Venn diagrams because Kamala loves Venn diagrams. We might hear about that at some point, but that's not priority. I was trying to make a diagram here. So if I follow the timeline, all the things that Karine Jean-Pierre said happened, she blamed it on Trump, right? That was very clever. It takes a special kind of person to stand at that podium and gaslight people during a time of need, such as post Helene. But if I follow the line of facts and evidence on hand at this point in history, it looks like they took FEMA home and shelter money and gave it to sanctuary cities for migrants that were illegal, but they gave them protection maybe sometimes. Okay. Then they come out and they deny that they did that. Because if you look in the news for this week in history, you will see every major mainstream media mouthpiece saying that's not a true thing. It's just like what people eat in Springfield. That's not a true thing. There's nothing to it. I don't care what your eyes saw in the pictures or the video or the testimony of the people. I don't care about that. The official narrative says something else. That's why it's mainstream, because it's away from the banks of reality. It is free flowing and changes all the time. Never the same river you're stepping in twice. That's the mainstream. It's just a deluge of contradictions daily that you can never kind of put together. So if it's an emergency, because they're using FEMA to give the migrants, legal or illegal, under protected status or not, they're taking emergency money from FEMA to give to the emergency that the migrants are causing. Okay, so then the migrants must be an emergency that has to be dealt with. What is being done? Who's doing something about that? Other than giving them EBT cards, free rent, and a whole bunch of things that you don't give to Americans who are the hardworking taxpayers who allegedly elected you to office in the first place to govern them and make their world a better place, not strip them of their rights and plunder their production. So again, I want to ask, which sanctuary cities are open to giving equal rights and equity to these people from Appalachia who just lost everything and are headed into winter with no major funding help in sight from the government that they've paid into for years and 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 years? And those people can't afford flood insurance. They didn't think they'd need it, and they can't afford it even if it was offered. And flood insurance only covers the first, the floors after your first floor. Your first floor is not covered. And I would look, even further to something we discussed earlier today in the Autonomy Q&A, which is the Army Corps of Engineers is in charge of all water management in America. So if dams failed and caused this damage, who was responsible for maintaining those dams or making sure that they don't fail under a deluge of, for instance, 14 trillion gallons of water? They didn't show up first to be like, hey, we're sorry for this and let us help you fix it, because they also build roads and bridges. They could have been there. And to that point, this came from LD in the production chat. You notice I can't log into Twitter because my browser does this thing where it just keeps reloading and trying to log in, not as me. So I don't know. I got to get a new browser. Been brave. But this is reported a couple days ago, October 3rd. Today's the 7th. So this is 4 days ago. The tweet is, sitting here at McGee-Tyson Air Base in Eastern Tennessee, not doing shit. Been here for 48 hours, and the only thing we've been tasked to do is fly some VIPs around yesterday. We are literally a 35-minute flight from Asheville and fully mission capable to support 4 ship ops and extended ground ops. Here's their inventory. 2 C-130 Hercules super carriers. You can bring a lot of goods, right? You got some Huey helicopters. You got some whatever this is. You got 26 operators. You got 4 trucks and 4 boats. Hey, that's a good start. How many of these other military bases are around with capable people who know how to use heavy equipment?
Yeah.
North and South Carolina have tons.
That's from Air Force PJ group and a group chat. And I also want to give some other perspective because, yeah, Fort Bragg's like a 3-hour drive. Thankfully, the 82nd Airborne, apparently they've got about 1,000 troops that are now helping as of yesterday or today. But, a guy that I've mentioned before, NC Scout, just an anecdote to put things in perspective from him. He was based at Fort Bragg in 2009. When the earthquake in Haiti hit, he watched an entire brigade of the 82nd Airborne spin up in 10 hours and go to help in Haiti. And that shit didn't happen this time.
It certainly didn't. And it's not, I mean, maybe day 3, maybe day 4, maybe day 5. But when you're on like day double digits and you're starting to do stuff, I'm highly suspect of the motives. And when you're more interested in counting the dead bodies than you are helping the people stay alive, I'm again, like, where's your prioritization? You can tag and bag people all next week, but we need to save people in the next 72 hours or they're going to perish in a variety of ways. So
yeah, and there's tons of military bases around where I'm at, like in just across the border in Kentucky. I think it's Fort Campbell, and there's several others around here too.
There's that one called Fort Knox, but I don't know if there's any useful soldiers over there guarding the feds gold.
It's crazy. And just real quick while we're on this, I did a clip, Genie, real quick for FEMA and migrants. And I typed in FEMA illegal aliens, FEMA aliens, all that. And I did see one entry for FEMA migrants from April 2021, where it's talking about FEMA is deploying 30 of these different vaccination clinics on wheels all across the country, which are like looking at talking about East Maryland, dotted with poultry plants, frontline workers, as well as migrant populations.
Yeah, get the starvation vaccine, prevent starvation.
Yeah, so there you go. So when they have to force vaccinate large populations, FEMA is on it.
And Bill Gates is there to help AI censor your observations of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all working as they planned so far. But we'll see how it works out. You know, there's like it's not a good storyline to predict the ending the whole time. So like it might look like the globalists, the New World Order have the advantage, but people be doing what people be doing. And that has always led to the freedom that they've always hated and tried to suppress. So freedom comes first. They don't have an understanding, appreciation, experience with it, so they find it threatening and they are fearful of it. However, they might want to try it on because that's what this country was founded on. They could move someplace else and experience tyranny full time. You don't have to impose it on us at least half the time. Just a thought. All right. So now we're into the next block. You heard about helicopters and people trying to bring resources, but you didn't have any specific first-hand accounts of it yet. So here's a specific first-hand account from a gentleman who has his own helicopter, and he and his co-pilot go in early on, well before FEMA and Joe Biden, everyone else shows up. They're saving people. And then you got someone who's an assistant, probably volunteer. I don't know, maybe not. Volunteer fire chiefs, not a problem. Maybe this guy's just on a power trip because he's in control that day. But anyway, he not only did the thing, but I followed up on this story to see what happened to the other people and what happened to the guy that did the thing. And the town defends him. It's hilarious. I'll see if I can find that clip. But they like his respect my authority in that situation. I think you'll identify with the pilot, probably his son, probably the victims, probably the real people with human hearts and souls in this story. But we're going to get to that and a whole lot more because FEMA abandons Appalachia. That's a clip. But I do have a clip in here from Wrangler Star. He lives in Oregon and he's a professional homeowner. So he leads his pro-ho audience in a variety of topics and tactics that capable men should be familiar with in most cases. This one was specifically what is being requested in the affected area as far as if you're going there to help or if you're sending stuff that people who are there need for help. He has the official list, and he also has some ideas on how you could do likewise for yourself in your own neighborhood, these sort of things, and be prepared. After that, we're going to see, because this is the only time you're going to see mules on this podcast, but people who know how to pack a mule are very popular in the past 8 days because it's the only transportation available. All the machines get stuck and the people can't do it, and the robots aren't advanced enough yet from DARPA. So we still using mules, and people who had mules, trained mules that you can do the job, were there delivering life-saving accoutrements that humans needed in that area. So that's a positive upward story. And then we'll get to more of the what and type of stuff that's going on with this story. All right, not to use home improvement sound effects anymore. Let's go to the first story.
Back to the mountains, where remarkable stories of survival are now being shared days after Helene wreaked havoc in North Carolina. But one Pageland man's efforts to help are now the source of controversy. He flew his own chopper on his own dime to help stranded victims. But that man says he abandoned his rescue missions after a fire official threatened to have him thrown in jail. Well, that man now wants answers and turned to Queen City News Chief Investigator Jody Barr to help figure out what went wrong here.
This is the original post that I was reading when I decided to go up and help. It's a long post, but she's saying that her kids and family and animals are trapped. No way out, no supplies, and the only way in or out is accessible by helicopter. Limited self-service and no water since Friday morning. I thought I have a helicopter and maybe I can help.
Jordan Sidham piled food and water into his helicopter Saturday and headed up toward Banner Elk, the only way through a mountain gap in Lake Lure.
This is the mountain valley that you would have to fly to get to Black Mountain, where we were escorting people out. This is a mountain range, and this is a mountain range. The only place to fly through with bad visibility, low cloud coverage, is Lake Lure.
The cries for help from people stranded without food, water, or electricity hit social media soon after the flooding last Friday.
But my parents are stuck there. Their address is Banner Elk. They are in the first condo. If you receive this, please give me a call back. Thank you.
Sidham's phone started lighting up on Saturday with people begging for help.
I could hear the desperation in her voice. This is multiple phone calls I've received like this, voicemails, text messages, and you could hear people desperate for help.
Sidham and his son rescued 4 people on Saturday and spent the night in a nearby pilot's lounge, then decided to fly again Sunday morning.
I spoke with my son, which is my co-pilot. I said, hey, do you want to go back out and try to help today? And his response was, there's so many messages, I don't think we can't not go help.
Sidham and his son were headed up to Black Mountain. Flight tracking shows no flight restrictions in place Saturday or Sunday morning when Sidham flew through the Lake Lure Gap. But that was all about to change. The Sidham spotted an older couple waving for help, then landed in what's left of their driveway.
Hey, I want you to let me get in. You step out and go out and help her in, put her bag in the back, get her strapped in. I'm going to take her down, come back. I'll take him, I'll come back, and then I'll get you, okay?
I originally left my son, co-pilot, on the side of the mountain. It was kind of unstable, so I didn't want to put more weight in the helicopter to lift back off. So I left my son with the other victim, and I was just going to take one person down at the time. And you could hear me in the video talking through with the victims and with my son what we were going to do.
3 minutes away, Sidham spotted a group of rescuers just down the river. He landed and found someone in charge.
Told him my background experience, law enforcement, firefighting, pilot. He immediately started helping with coordination. He gave me radio frequencies to coordinate with them on, set up a landing area for me to come back with the other victim. And in the middle of the whole conversation and then blocking the road off, I was greeted by the, at that time I didn't know, but Lake Lure fire chief or assistant chief maybe, and he shut down the whole operation. So at that point I felt like the conversation wasn't going any further. And again, he asked me to leave, and I said, hey, I have no problem getting out of your area. If that's what you want us to do, we'll leave, no issue. At that point, I asked him, what was the reason I had to leave them there? And he said, again, you're interfering with my operation. I just need you to get out of the area. I said, sir, I don't know where you were trained at, but I know how my training is, and I'm not going to leave personnel behind. I'm going back to get my co-pilot. He said, if you turn around and go back up the mountain, you're going to be arrested. I said, well, sir, I'm going back to get my co-pilot. I don't know what to tell you. And he said, I'm letting you know. And at that point, he waved for 2 law enforcement officers to come over and told me that again, if I go back up the mountain, I would be arrested.
He flew the 3-minute trip back, picked up his son, and left the woman's husband behind.
I'm sure he was flooded with emotions and trying to rescue other people, and I just felt that it was best at the time to leave. So I did follow his instructions, and I had a conversation with the female victim before I left, apologizing and explaining. She was standing there. She heard the whole conversation, and they were both very, very surprised, very upset. The husband, as I was leaving off of the side of the mountain, at that point, separated from his wife, he was upset. I can only imagine.
Sidham and his nearly 1,400 flight hours turned his chopper around and headed back to South Carolina, passing people waving for help along the way.
As I was actually leaving to go back to get my son, the original chief or captain that I spoke to, his crew and himself, they came back over and said, hey man, we can't tell you to go get the victim. We can't even ask you to go get the victim, but we can tell you if you come back with the victim, we'll have you a designated landing spot, and they won't. We'll make sure they don't come over here.
So there was no flight restriction when you went in?
No flight restriction when I went in. It went in place 20 or 30 minutes after the confrontation with Mr.
You feel like that was coincidental, or do you think that was because of what happened?
I don't think it can be coincidental when there has not been one in place the day before doing rescue operations, the night of, the morning of, that took place after our altercation. I think there would have never been a TFR put in place had we not had that conversation. If I had to do it over again, I would have stopped and I would have rescued as many people until they decided they were going to arrest me.
Well, for now, we've chosen not to name that Lake Lure fire official because communications in and out of that town are still difficult. We want to include his side in this story, and if and when he responds to our messages, we will include that. The good news is I saw a video of a Coast Guard helicopter landing in Lake Lure this morning, so hopefully some of those mountain rescues are underway today. From Pageland, Jody Barr, Queen City News.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Quo. Happy to be joined by Amanda. You live about an hour outside of Asheville, North Carolina. Everybody on TV is seeing Asheville and the horrifying images of just the whole community seems like it's underwater. But this is spread far and wide. Hurricane Helene's devastation in Asheville and further out. Can you describe, again, I think you're about an hour outside of Asheville. Can you describe what's going on where you are, what your neighbors are dealing with, the long lines for everything from gas to food? And it seems, despite what we're hearing from the media, FEMA and the federal government might not be doing as thorough of a job as we need.
Absolutely. So I am in Forest City, North Carolina. We're in the foothills of the mountains, about an hour from the center of Asheville. We did sustain a lot of damage, but it was mostly high winds. We do have some flooding, but our town has, it's most of it's remained. The people are doing pretty well. We do have to, gas is limited. We have to sit in line for about an hour. And then you may have a $20 or $50 limit on what you can get, which you just burnt sitting there for an hour. And that's if you can find it. Like I said, we're fortunate. We have gas. But around us, every county, oh my goodness, the damage is devastating. Buncombe County, Mitchell County, all around us, McDowell County, Henderson County. The damage is just incredible. I've got Chimney Rock, parts of Asheville, parts of Hendersonville, Marshall, Bryson City, Cherokee, and the lower parts of Lake Lure were or are still underwater.
Wow.
There are people that are still stranded. They're not getting help. They're stranded. They're landlocked. They're in floods. And FEMA, okay, so I did go up into Asheville yesterday. There's one way in and one way out. I actually made it up into Asheville and around into OT. And the damage, houses literally washed down the road, or they're covered. There's mudslides. But Asheville, there's so many dead bodies that you can smell it. The stench is becoming unbearable. You can smell it. There are that many dead people. Wow. It's bad. It's very, very, I can't describe to you how bad it is.
And when you say FEMA, is it that FEMA can't get into certain areas, or FEMA isn't doing enough?
They're not doing enough. Where I went to, we had family members in Asheville. We got to the house. They said that FEMA was there asked what they needed. There's 2 babies in the house. Asked what they needed. They said, we need water and formula. They left, never came back. How long are babies supposed to wait on formula? How long are people supposed to wait on water? How long are they supposed to wait? So they were there. They know what they need. Where are they? You know, we saw emergency vehicles riding around. We had to get into Asheville. We drove over live power lines and under fallen trees to get to our family members. The people are helping the people. The people are helping the people. But here's another problem. So they're telling people to donate to FEMA, not to bring supplies in, to donate to FEMA, and FEMA's got it under control. That is not the case. FEMA does not have it under control. Like I said, there are literally people still in floods right now that cannot get out. There are people the people that did survive, they are in shock. They are traumatized. They watch their family members. They watch their neighbors die. We need help desperately.
In addition to the horrifying images of the dead bodies and the smell that you described, it sounds like there's also a lot of people still trapped.
Yes, that's a big problem. Okay, so there are people, the Fairview, North Carolina fire chief is turning away private helicopters that are trying to come in and help. Everybody they're turning help away. The people are trying to help, and our help is being turned away. I don't understand what is going on, but it is not okay. We still have people trapped. FEMA does not have it under control, and we need help.
Mm-hmm. Talk about you living about an hour outside, so you're not in the worst of it. But you said there's long lines for gas and other things. Talk about how it is in your area and other areas as far as power, gas, food, etc.
So we were without power for 3 days, and we were the fortunate ones that got it on in a few days. We did have water because we were in the city. The water was still working. But, now I'm a kind of person, I have a lot of food in my house. We have a lot of kids. So, we were pretty good, but there's a lot of people. So most of the grocery stores, the 2 main grocery stores, Ingles and Food Lion, they weren't able to open the first few days. Either they didn't have power or they didn't have staffing. So some of, maybe the local Dollar Generals were open. Some of the local stores were open. So even supplies are in the short. People are going to by the thousands to stores that are open because they're having to travel. They're coming down from Asheville. They're coming in from Hendersonville. They're coming in from other places because they have nothing. They don't have power. Their stores aren't open. So they're coming in from everywhere trying to get their needs. And there's just not enough. There's not enough. I just yesterday got a notice on my phone of 3 different drop points, 3 different locations in South Carolina where people can go to pick up water and emergency supplies. That's all I'm aware of at this point. Wow.
And for you, you went into Asheville. Did you go in to try and help, or you went in because you have family there? You're in about an hour from Asheville.
We had family members there. They literally, so across from, they're just down the road from the VA in Asheville. There was a huge apartment complex from them. So, the apartment complex was underwater. They literally watched multiple neighbors die. One was hit by a tree. Others were washed away. Literally, the house was floating away with people in it. They are in shock. They are traumatized. We went in to get family members out, and thank God we did. We barely made it to them. It was a miracle, but we did.
Mm-hmm. Can you kind of talk about, because obviously in the case.
Beloved, the natural disaster that is currently taking place in North Carolina and the Appalachians and on the East Coast right now is of biblical proportions. The mainstream media is not covering it hardly at all. When I click on there, all I see them talking about is the filthy sodomites of Hollywood and P. Diddy, and not about the people that are dying of thirst and starving and just suffering terribly. If you haven't followed this or know what's going on or just out of the loop, I encourage you to go on and look at some videos on X or on TikTok. It seems like the only place where you can actually get information on this. I'm getting firsthand information because 3 of the warband members are in the mix right now, and I'm getting real live intel. I just got the list. This is called the Urgent New Critical Front Supply List, Immediate Frontline Supply Needs. Now, this gives us a really rare opportunity today to learn the lessons that are being, I guess, learned right now in real time about what people really need and what is essential. What is the essential equipment when you're really in the mix? And I've laid everything out here. We're going to go over these items. They're in 5 categories, and then I'll give you my final thoughts, and I'll give you some options for those of you who are interested in donating money as well as time or any of your special skills. So let's jump into category number 1, where we're going to go into the tools that is on the urgent frontline list. None of this is my think so. These are the actual items on the critical need list. This is not by any means comprehensive. This is just what they're asking for, and you would do very well to wake up and pay attention to this and make sure you have these things in your items, because this is what is lacking. Chainsaw tools. Chainsaw tools, primarily chainsaw wrenches, files, and sharpening systems. There are so many trees. It's a heavily wooded area that there are people that are still trapped, going on a week now, that have no access, and they won't for weeks, maybe even months, because of downed trees. And for lack of a chainsaw, for lack of a sharpener, they're trapped in there with no food and no water, and it's absolutely getting dire. So have yourself a good set of files. It's interesting, they also asked for, in addition to files, was chainsaw chains. 20-inch bars seem to be the most popular. Now, we run bigger bars than that out here, obviously, but I just found that interesting. Chainsaw chains of both pitches, of the 3/8 and the smaller ones, they should have them. They're really, really desperate for them. As well as bar oil and mix. They seem to have gasoline. I didn't see that on the list, but they definitely had a need for bar oil and mix, as well as leather gloves and chainsaw safety chaps. You get a lot of people, especially professional homeowners, that don't spend a lot of time cutting. You can you really hurt yourself and get into a bad situation. So having chainsaw chaps is really essential for running that type of equipment. But as far as tools go, this is what they're requesting right now. Also on the critical list is shovels. Square point for cleaning up, scooping mud, and a round point. There are actually volunteers and local folks that are digging their neighbors out of mudslides by hand. It's sad to say that we can send billions or hundreds of billions over to Ukraine and to Israel, but when it comes to our own people and our own needs, it's left to the people of the local community to offer support. It is, I guess, that's just the world that we live in now. I've been telling you for years, they're not coming to save you. You're going to have to take these steps for yourself. Perfect example, as we move into the next thing, is one thing it's a real critical need is generators. Generators and power banks, battery banks, whether it be gas or electric solar generators with solar panels like the EcoFlow here. I was talking to the middlemen, and which, they're all equipped. One of them was telling me that because of a video that I did, that they invested in a 100-gallon fuel cube. He said that when he bought it, his wife got mad at him. But now that they've been running their generator, and because they have that fuel cube, they're able to keep their refrigerators, freezers running. They have running water, all of that. That's what I'm saying, is that these things are really important. And if you think that someone's going to come and save you, you get on a mass scale, or devastation on a mass scale like this. And if you live rurally, we were told by the Red Cross not too long ago, by emergency managers in our area here, if we had the big earthquake that they've been predicting forever, that we could probably expect 6 months to a year before we would even see any help. And that's if the bridges were out. So that's how long you'd have to sustain yourself. So really take heed. Also, there's been a lot of concerns about security risks with those guys that are running gas generators. One of the comments was made to one of my buddies was, well, I guess we know who's prepared or where we're going to go to get supplies, because that gas generator is just running and just screaming the whole time. And it's a red flag for everyone around that hasn't prepped, that you've thought of it and you've probably got supplies. So having a backup system like a solar generator, a solar panel, these can charge all the things that you want, and they're absolutely silent. So that, to me, is going to be critical, is to have the ability to charge your radios and phones. Communication has been a big problem, and that's what we'll move into next. The lack of communications has been a huge problem right now. It's just absolutely heartbreaking watching the videos of family members that are not able to get in touch with, especially with elderly relatives that have been isolated, that live in small towns. They have no way of getting a hold of them. Self-service is down, and they're completely in the dark. And the worst thing in life is just not knowing, because your mind automatically assumes the worst. So having good, reliable communications, Evan from Radio Made Easy, bless him, has been giving radios out to search and rescue teams from his own personal stock. I'm going to put a link down below to his website. If you want to help contribute to that, Mrs. W and I are sending money to these charities to help them with that. He's programming them. Him and his whole family are making it possible for these search and rescue teams, these private citizens that are doing the hard work, to stay in touch with one another, because the cell phones are absolutely out. So man, you got to get these radios, gentlemen. You got to get the radios. You got to get one of these 3 radio kits, put them together. You've got one for your family. You can hand one out to a neighbor. You can set up watch. I watched a video from one guy that was living in a rural area, and there was a Ryder truck parked out in front of his long driveway, just sitting out there. Now he's got no power, no cell service. He's isolated in a rural town. He drives out there into his quad, confronts the guy, and he makes up some story about, oh yeah, I'm waiting for someone, I'm here to deliver a package. Well, he said, I've got no package coming. The guy took off down the road. He got on his radio, was able to call his neighbor, which they stay in communication with each other, and they met in the middle and boxed this guy in, and he went around and ran off. Probably a looter. So those guys were able to communicate and form a perimeter and have kind of a little bit of security because they had got these radios. I would personally do this. I would also look at getting a scanner. If you got a scanner like this one that I bought, what was this? This is the Uniden, the Bearcat. You're able to at least hear the radio traffic. You can pick up what the hams are broadcasting and find out what's going on, at least know, even if you can't communicate. But at minimum, I would have a pair of, or a trifecta of those radios, because not being able to communicate with your family and no cell phones, I mean, you just have no idea how scary that is. Also, 2 other electronic items that are on the critical list. One of them kind of surprised me, was they were asking for carbon monoxide sensors. Why would they want that, of all the things? And I realized, well, they're all running gas generators, and people die every year. I used to be a career firefighter. I was an engineer, and I know of cases where folks during power outages took their generators, rolled them outside in front of the garage door, and thought that would be good. But the whole family suffocated from carbon monoxide because the cold air intakes sometimes are in the garage, and the furnace is in the garage. It sucked all that exhaust in there and put the whole family to sleep, and they never woke up. So having carbon monoxide sensors is on the critical list, as well as batteries, and they just said all types. So have a good selection of batteries. I just don't know how many times I can go over this. AA, AAA, CR123s, 9 volts, that's going to be for your detectors, and I would even have Ds and Cs, because some of the older folks are going to have those antiquated flashlights, and just have a full set. When next time you go to Costco, just load up on the 50-pack of all the brands and just put them away, and one and done, and you're good. Next up, also kind of surprised me, which was cleaning supplies. These are the cleaning supplies that made the critical frontline list, what they're asking for. Disinfectant spray bottles, something like the Simple Green, something to clean, because if you can't disinfect, you can clean up the mud and you can wash the walls down with water, but you got to disinfect, or what's going to come is mold and disease. And once you have that, then you really have a problem. So cleaning supplies, bleach, shop towels was on there, as well as brooms and dustpans. And that's something that I wouldn't have really thought of and considered. But if you're trying to clean up your house and you don't have these things, or they've washed away, who knows what. I don't know. As I said, this is not my list. I'm just showing you the things that they're putting on there. This is what they're asking for, and this is what's important to them right now. As well as drum liners, trash bags, it's just terrible what's going on over there. I've been watching on TikTok some of the frontline stories from the linemen that are going in, and the linemen are actually going into some of these places for the very first time, and they're saying that the stench of the decay and you can imagine what that is from people and animals, is just overwhelming. What the body count will be when everything is said and done, it's hard to imagine. But for various reasons, trash bags, drum liners, a place to put this stuff, things that are contaminated, as well as big tarps. Tarps are so essential. We're coming into wintertime, and that thousands of these houses have had trees fall on them. They've got holes in their roof. If you can get up there with a chainsaw, if you can get that off there and get that whole patch before you get a bunch of extra water and stuff in there, that can make the difference between your house being inhabitable or infested with mold. So tarps and trash bags and drum liners. And the other thing that they asked for was small bottles of propane, and large 20-pound bottles and regular bottles. Most people have camp stoves, most people have lanterns, but they hadn't bought enough of these, and there's an urgent need for propane, as well as traffic cones, which I thought was kind of funny. But then when I saw the streets and I saw how many hazards that the local folks had to navigate, that made sense too, to be able to put a traffic cone. They asked for traffic cones, and they asked for marking ribbon, where they could mark hazards. You know, people are going to be coming in at night. There's no power. There's no street lights in the rural areas. And one wrong mistake, and you can get yourself over the edge of a cliff. Everything's washed out. So I found that interesting as well. Traffic cones. And I will add this. Whenever you have marking tape, always have a Sharpie with you. Marking tape really stands out. And if you tie a bunch of this stuff around a tree, if you need to leave a message for someone, most people will stop and investigate it. And you can write right on this with a Sharpie. You can give a message, and it gets a lot of people's attention. So I found that very interesting as well. Also, the last two things on the list were water containers. Water containers and the way to filter the water. All of their water is contaminated. I mean, these people are in dire straits. I heard the statistic this morning that they're going through 10,000 cases of water per day, and just in 3 counties, and that is not enough. So to be able to have some long-term storage, store it in your bathtub, but you should have about 6 of these jerry cans, and on the eve of any sort of a hurricane or tornado, make sure that stuff is full. Make sure it's full and filled up. And then finally, blankets. Blankets and warm clothing. People's things have washed away. There's stories of little kids walking around naked looking for their parents. I mean, it is the most pitiful, tragic thing in the world, and no one is talking about it outside of the 2 sources that I shared with you. It's just unbelievable. So have some wool blankets and some extra clothing. We're coming into fall, and my heart just breaks for those families.
Okay, so he's got links in the description. His name is Wrangler Star. You can find him on YouTube. He's got millions of followers. And if you need to man up some of your skills, he's a good mentor in that area. He's an affable character in the YouTube world. Some of you are all good. Like, I watched that video. I was like, I have all that stuff. I know how to use it. I could upgrade my chainsaw. That's what I was thinking about, Christmas presents and stuff. Anyway, some of you heard that list and you're terrified because you maybe for the first time in adult life realize you might not be prepared for some of the stuff that's going down just as regular, nature type of stuff. And that can be pretty overwhelming for sure. And it usually is caused by a lack of knowledge, a lack of experience, and a lack of cash flow, all combined together. But we can whittle down all those things. You could get some knowledge, you can get some experience, and you can learn how to improve your cash flow, because there's a lot of problems. I'm not saying money solves all the problems, but when you're trying to solve problems and you don't have money, it's like another problem that you don't really need at that point. It would be just nice to be able to buy the right thing if it's available, especially in a market where when it's in high demand, you might have to pay a premium for things for you and your family. And that premium is paid, in your case, by working smarter, not necessarily harder, and learning some skills that can help you pay the bills in those situations. For instance, for a long time, I just left, I had a box of batteries. I had a box for big batteries, a box for small batteries. And when the family or I needed some batteries, I would go to one of those boxes. Now, if you ask me, do I need batteries? I don't know until I can't find them. So that's not a good prepared situation. It's not good to have, things, to have assets and not know where they are kind of makes them liabilities, would be the point. So if you wanted to start small, something I think everyone here could afford, everyone here uses batteries, everyone here wants to be better prepared maybe than where they were yesterday. So a little easy first step toward, because what I'm pointing at is solving the problem is a combination of you diligently working at solving that problem over time, and at the same time, probably also raising your cash flow so you can solve that problem faster. So let's start at the wee small end of the ramp and do something that's like, I don't know, $20. And let me see, I'm going to go book full screen. Here we go. Oh, I got to zoom out. We're zoomed in, right? Like at some point, you want to know where your batteries are. Let me see if I can get it all on screen for you. You know, have a tester to see if batteries are going to be a good thing. I don't use these other than like a LED lantern in an emergency. Same thing with these. I don't have anything I really use these for. So I got walkie-talkie batteries, I got lantern batteries, and I got batteries for some other stuff. And I do replace these more often than these bigger ones. But at least I have the ability. Oh, lights went out. We need to get something. I'm not running all over or finding out I didn't order the thing. You also need to have some, if you're a fan of Second Amendment, you need to have these batteries. CR123s, right? Right, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
You need to have these for your car remotes and all the other little things that go bumping at night, you know, type of systems. Carbon monoxide was another one that you could start with, right?
Guitar tuners.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things on that list that you're like, someday maybe I don't need that, but it doesn't hurt to have a couple extra blankets, because he's right. If your neighbor has a fire and people ran outside naked, they probably want a blanket, right? These are simple things that you're not going to think of until it's probably happening to you or someone else. And you're like, oh, it'd be good. So for him to bring all that together, I'm not telling anybody to go out and like max out your credit card trying to prep. What I'm saying is, if you plan on continuing to survive in this environment, you might want to get familiarity with what is necessary to survive and thrive in a more harsh environment than the terrarium that most people have grown up and become accustomed and dependent on. They've been accustomed to it and dependent on it. And those people lack what I would call maybe some good old-fashioned redneck skills. There's somebody who could hear that in a racist way. I don't mean that at all. I mean, first off, rednecks, I thought they were Scottish immigrants who wore red bandanas and led uprisings against coal mining, tycoons. So there's a history to that. What I'm saying is old-fashioned work ethic, knowing how to dig and cut down trees and build things and fetch water and build wells, like the basics of civilization and humanity upon which everything else is built. Like those forgotten skills, unappreciated skills, all of a sudden, the guy you're going to see in one of these next clips, the guy who for the last 100 years is like, why am I still packing mules? You know, we have cars, we have quads, we have gators. There's all sorts of things to get. Like, why are they still packing mules? Thankfully, someone knows how to take that rope and continuously distribute that load on that mule so that the mule will walk and not just stand there. Because if you don't load the mule right, they're not going to do their job. And right now you're trying to save people. So these types of old world skills, you might call them, instead of redneck skills, to get away from any negative connotations that people might have as predispositions. I'm just trying to communicate thoughts here. So these types of things, like I think it's an obvious thing that chainsaw being number one, because people don't get, unless they go and have cut wood before, you wait for other people to remove it. You're not watching the process. Like the first thing you need to get the trees off the people, the houses, the power lines, and the roads, because those are the real points of danger, because they can continue to shift and get people killed and stuff like that. So those shortages, and for people making donations, wouldn't you feel better like buying some chainsaws instead of just throwing money to FEMA? Like, here's an excuse to get these things to these people. So at the end of Wrangler Star, he's got some links of trusted charities that he's giving to. In the upcoming Truth Stream, there are many reputable sites that Melissa Dykes has thoughtfully brought out, so that for anyone who is watching this live and it's timely information for you or a loved one or family member or friend in that area, I want to point you toward like the solutions. There are people working insulated from that FEMA situation. Sometimes they're like, this is how we have to operate. It has to be on the down low. Otherwise the feds will come in and stop you instead of letting you get the baby formula. That's what they drink.
Yeah. Can I throw in a couple suggestions here too?
Yes, please.
So I use a thing called a jackery, which is very similar to to what he was showing in there, where it's the solar power backup. You know what I mean? So it's like a battery with all the different outlets. Got an standard AC outlet. Probably can't handle a whole lot of power, but it's enough to charger devices, run basic electronics, laptops, stuff like that. And it has the big old fold out like cellular, solar charger, solar panel.
Yeah.
And then I discovered this when we went to the Bertaria camp out. The guy I was with, Whidbey again, our North Carolina guy. Shout out. He'll watch this eventually. I know he'll hear it. But he had this thing that was really cool that I hadn't seen before, and it's the power tool battery topper that you just snap onto your power tool battery, and it's got AC outlets and USB inputs and all that stuff. And I was blown away because we were able to charge his phone, my phone, and then our next door neighbor's phone over the course of 4 days, and it went down like 1 bar. I was like, this is amazing. So I ordered one. His was DeWalt, mine are pretty much all Milwaukee tools, and so I ordered one for my Milwaukee. And so I just have a bunch of power tool batteries. So if you have power tool batteries, it's $99. It's just a power tool topper that, I mean, I bet I could keep my phone charged for a couple weeks, honestly, on that one resource alone. And I want to give a shout out to my landlord, who's very prepared, and she taught me about this. She gave me this.
Moonshine?
This is no moonshine, but basically it's olive oil, and it's a little wick, and you can make like a lamp on olive oil. I didn't know that olive oil was a something that you could run a lamp on. So if you got extra,
for the edification of your landlord, my friend, let me let you know that you can do the same thing with Crisco. Crisco is a hell of a lot cheaper and available in more bulk than any type of olive oil probably being fit for human consumption.
So if you have any like laying around and it's like getting stale or whatever, then you just throw it in a lamp. So I got a few of these laying around now, and I did just want to give a quick plug here because I lost my Instagram account a few months back, and so I've started over.
Check the couch cushions, because sometimes when you chill, sometimes it falls out of your pocket.
Yeah. So exactly. But I did start a new one, and instead of like giving up and falling into the victim mentality, I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna actually put effort into growing this account. And so I do every single day, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I have a different theme for every day, and Fridays are Freedom Fridays, where we focus on solutions. And I did a video on this a few weeks ago. If you go check back, like before all this went down, I did a whole thing where I showed all of my different battery backup options and all of my backup power solutions. So it's Rebunked New. It used to be Rebunked News, but they took that. So if you're typing in Rebunked News, it'll pop up. So I want you guys to give me a follow if you can. And I do stuff every single day of the week. It's Motivational Mondays, Truth Tuesdays, Midweek.
What if one day of the week, like Friday, you broadcast from a local restaurant that wants good publicity, and they could give away fries for free, and you could call it Freedom Fry Friday?
Freedom Fry Fridays. Yeah, I can totally do that. Yeah, we'll incorporate that. But anyway, we do offer solutions on there, and it's all freedom oriented, and it's all the stuff we talk about here. And last week I had on Truth Thursday, or was it Truth Tuesday? It was either last week or the week before. I did a clip Genie from Grand Theft World. So, we're incorporating everything into it. So yeah, Rebunked New on Instagram. I figure if you're like, what's the point of making music, doing podcasts if there's nobody there to hear it? So I'm putting in the effort, playing their game. That's what you got to do, man. So there you go.
Yeah, well, if you want to put in the effort and not necessarily play their game, because prepping's a thing, and it shouldn't become like your full-time full-time thing, but hobby is a good place to start. Just like trying to be organized with the things you already have. Don't go spend money on new things. Just spend a little money organizing and marshaling the things you have, so you actually know, hey, I have 2 containers that if I wash them out, I can use them to store water. And you do that until someday, because you know how to make your offer to the public. Now you can afford like those fancy blue water containers like Wrangler Star has and other brand new tools. But otherwise, if you want to be prepared and your cash flow is not there because you don't know how to make your offer to the world, there's something called like Facebook Marketplace. People give stuff away for free because they're moving. They got brand new shovels and stuff. They got yard sales. There's all sorts of ways to be thrifty. People are throwing stuff throwing it away along the road because they bought something and it had a broken handle. You can buy a piece of wood and put a new handle in there. You can be kind of a genius if you want to be creative and you don't want to be a victim in the situation, because I could only imagine, like way back when, if I had to deal with these problems and I didn't have cash flow and I didn't have talent that I'm offering to the market to have that go around, I'd be feeling like, how do I do this? It'd be a lot of pressure. And I don't think that pressure should be there in the first place. I would think if I lived in a successful state, I would have a governor who would say things like, we're going to take our money from this stupid thing over here, and we're going to give everyone a Jackery and a Berkey water filter and a set of Baofeng $25, radios, because the radios he's showing you are probably more expensive because he used to be a professional wildfire firefighter type of guy, like parajumper into the fire dude, right? So he's got better stuff, but you can get a $25 Baofeng on Amazon, and you can have a whole bunch of those features, functionality, and learn how to program it and all that good stuff before some panic attack event type of thing happens, right?
Just make sure it's not coming from Israel. I have to say
that is, well, I mean, you really just don't want to get the stuff that comes from Hezbollah, right? Any of the shipments they might have gotten, I would be questionable. Jon Stewart had a funny piece when he was reporting on it, even though it was filled with inaccuracies, they can still make it funny. And he had the pager like seat, and he's like pushing it off the table. He's like, get that out. I don't know where they got that. They might not have bought the real thing. They might have bought the counterfeit too. So there's more to be learned in the preparation and how you actually get things done in life. But it starts with just understanding the nature of the environment we are moving into as humanity and as Americans locally. And maybe we can bring a little bit better self to these situations. And that's going to be the improvement we seek in life, because that's what we can control and have agency over. FEMA is not an agency that you have agency over. So expecting them to come and help is like expecting the cops to do something other than come afterwards and write a report of what happened while they weren't there. Although some of these stories, I think the cops were there in some of these stories coming up. All right, we want to go to the uplifting story of, remember when we had like COVID and you had to be an essential worker to travel around?
I still have my paperwork, dude. I still have my paperwork when that happened.
Permission letters and
yes,
stuff?
I have my permission letter that says Scott is an essential worker. Travel papers, dude.
In Appalachia, mules are essential workers, and they are allowed to travel where people are not really other people. If you don't have a mule, you're not going there. So I was glad to see, even though it's like limited, it's like one truck with 9 mules. I was hoping maybe there's more people with mules who get inspired. It's like, we're going to go there too and help, because this is what you need before the Army Corps of Engineers gets there with like giant machines to deal with it. You need humans who are intrepid and courageous and brave and want to help their fellow humans, because it's the golden rule. If you'd want the reciprocity. If you were in that situation, there was capable people, you'd be like, hey, stop watching football and come help us, please. Right. So it's just like how we roll. So I wanted to include this encouraging clip, as well as I will update you that the husband who got left behind on the side of the hill, he was probably pretty upset when that dude left. I don't care like how nice you tell him, he's probably going to be throwing some curse words at you. But he's alive. There's interviews with him. I know what the result was. I'm going to speculate that after a couple minutes of realizing his situation, he started being aware and observing his environment. And the chopper that just took his wife that's never coming back just went silent. Hey, it sounds like it landed maybe right down there. I bet if I walk down there, I could find whatever rescue team's down there that he's dropping my wife off at. And the guy walked out himself. So he didn't need to be rescued after. There's things that when you're with your wife, you're like, oh, it's too dangerous. But when she's gone and you got nothing else to lose, like that guy found his way out of there. So that was good. And the town, whoever that runs that town and control, she's like the spokesperson for the town over that assistant fire chief. They said he acted exactly as he's supposed to. And she was very happy about it. So you could tell she didn't lose her house and everything in the whole storm situation. All right, so let's go learn from Queen City News. North Carolina farmer using drone to deliver supplies to Western North Carolina because they have irrigation drones that can carry a couple 100 pounds, and you can fly stuff into it to people, right? So it's not government or FEMA figuring that out. It's like farmers who like, hey, if we took this thing off and put this other thing on, we could carry it over there, right? Redneck power. And then mules becoming essential to get supplies to cut off communities, also coming from Queen City News. Let's go to it.
Well, scenes like this are unfortunately becoming all too common in western North Carolina in the wake of Hurricane Helene. Drone operators are shedding light on the massive impact the storm has had on these communities, giving us insight that otherwise would be impossible with roads closed and communities flooded. And not everyone is using this technology just to get a look at the damage below. Some farmers in Asheville are taking to the skies in order to help those in need with a more direct approach. Our Madison Forsey has those details.
It's devastating.
Hope can come from anywhere, and sometimes it comes from a black trash bag 30 feet up.
As soon as the flood hit, or hurricane hit, everybody was asking for helicopters, need helicopters, need helicopters.
And where a helicopter can't go, Preston Cave, a Surrey County native, along with 4 or 5 other drone operators, will be there.
We've cut down shopping carts to be able to hook to our T40 on a 40-foot rope, to be able to put supplies in a shopping cart and fly them like short distance over a river, over a busted bridge.
Many of these drones are meant for spraying crops and other agricultural purposes, but now they're dropping supplies and surveying hard to reach places.
This is a drone we've been usually flying at night, trying to look for people trapped, people on roofs, just looking for people in debris, anything that we can do with it. We've also been doing work with the DOT too, looking at roads, seeing what's washed out. Can you get through there? Can you not?
They've helped out in McDowell County and spent the day around Asheville, near Fairview, ready and willing for the call. Some team members are from Wisconsin and Alabama, but united by their love for the potential these ag drones have.
I'd want someone to come check on us, and I know that there's not a lot of this equipment out there, and it's, hey, let's go use it while we can.
Spreading hope from up above, any way they can.
If my girls was hungry, I'd want them fed.
At the end of the day, a little bit of humanity and try to help people out when they need it.
Right now, there are so many roads that are still closed or are non-existent, leading up to these mountain towns that have been trapped and cut off from supplies for days. While machinery has not been able to reach them, these families are now relying on mule power to save them. This is not your typical ride through the Blue Ridge. Rather, it's an attempt to get help to families stuck on the mountain. This video is from Cajun Navy 2016 from Louisiana, and it's showing the Mountain Mule Parker Ranch, carrying supplies including insulin to a family in desperate need. Just one of a few dozen trips they'll make on the backs of the only tool that can get up there.
Right now, I mean, they're in mud and crumbling roads, and they are super sure-footed, and they can pick their way through.
Michelle Toberger and her husband own the ranch in Reeford. They saw the images pouring out of western North Carolina. The couple accepted it could be days to weeks before vehicles could get supplies to families.
He needed to get the places where he knew the mules could get into that other things couldn't. That's what he specializes in.
So they loaded up 9 of their finest, headed to the foothills, saddled up, and set off. Those supplies coming from donation drops like this one on Tuesday in Rowan County. Some drove for more than an hour to donate, like Taylor Edwards and her daughter Emery.
We love mules, and we know that they are the all-terrain vehicle of the equine world, but I've grown up going to those mountains, and so I recognize scenes and areas that are now unrecognizable.
A lifeline arriving soon to a place machines cannot touch. But this is just the first hoof print in a larger journey.
Now I just can't imagine stopping until we've helped enough.
The mission gets supplies to people that desperately need it. I asked if they have plans to rescue anyone that is currently trapped. They say, well, that's not in the cards for them. If somebody desperately needs to get out, they're going to find a way. In Cleveland, Daniel Pierce, Queen City News.
All right, so there's an argument in libertarian philosophy about roads. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a lot of people who say, well, without the government, who would build the roads? Well, right now, there's no roads. So we're going to see who's going to build roads first. I'm going to think the type of people that would take a drone and strap a shopping cart onto it and actually get it done are going to get things done before the bureaucracy can even get their budget together. I remember a time when I was a kid. This is one of the first times I was influenced by mainstream media. I grew up in a rural area. It was all woods, and there were relatives nearby. And on our main road, there was a pothole. It was like 16 inches deep. It was a huge hole in the road. and people were getting their cars messed up from it. And my grandfather, the potholes in front of his house. And so they don't want to, town doesn't want to fix it. He's like, well, we'll fix it ourselves. The townspeople, the people who live there, we'll fix it. We're farmers. We got farm equipment. We'll fix it. Then you're like, oh, if you do that, we're going to send the police. Right. So they do it. They send the police, but somebody called Wayne Van Dyne from KDKA News or WTAE, one of those Pittsburgh stations back then. And he's an investigative reporter who's got nothing else to do but drive an hour out from the city and cover this pothole controversy. So if you don't learn how to let other people know who have interest in it and have similar things going on, it's like they're going to memory hole it and make it look like it never happened out there, which is what most of America thinks this week. They don't see what's going on in Appalachia. They certainly have not seen what you're about to see, which are the investigative journalism from Really Graceful and Truth Stream Media on this situation, because I've given you the general grammar. Here's some individual parts of things that happened. Now they're going to give you the logic where they're going to put it together so you understand that this is not just incompetence, right? If it's incompetence or it's malevolence, I don't think we should be paying for either. I don't think we should be tolerating that as our standard of living or the standard of care that our government is going to give us. But I'm going to also see it as that's what we get as individuals until we raise our aptitude to a point where we don't have to tolerate such things anymore, right? It's like it's outgrowing the bully, so to speak. And part of the bullying is self-imposed by we the people, by not understanding what our rights are, not understanding where the boundaries of government are, and how to keep those things in check. So I think it's important that as we see these things going on in Appalachia, that we send prayers to them, but we also realize like it's just a matter of time before they get to everybody else and treat them the same way as they do the people there, or the people in Appalachia. They're being treated like the people in New Orleans from 2005, right? It's just a similar situation, different decade. 20 years later, they got to celebrate. All right, so let's get into it, and I'm sending it to you now, LD. Sorry about that.
It's just so motivating to see these guys be demonstrated. They're 100 times, 1,000 times more valuable than the entire federal government, with mules and their own homemade drones that they just rigged up with shopping carts. Like, that's
Zip
America right there, dude.
Yeah,
that's America, baby. That is.
So that's
America,
what I meant by redneck.
That's the America.
Skills. Yeah,
that's the America.
The ingenuity. They're not letting a problem go unsolved when they got some shopping carts, zip ties, and duct tape around, man. It's
awesome.
like MacGyver type stuff, which also goes back. MacGyver might have been Irish and not Scottish. He could have been like a redneck genealogy legacy type guy. All right, before we get too lost in MacGyverisms, let's go to Really Graceful, what the media won't tell you about Appalachia, and then we'll get into the Truth Stream piece. It's part 1 of 2. What is actually going on in North Carolina? And I had already done a good bit of study on that, and then I got to the second half of what she had to lay out. I was like, this is infuriating, and it's the first time I'm seeing some of this stuff. So even if you think you know about these stories, I'm pretty sure you're going to see some stuff in here you weren't aware of, and that is substantial and meaningful for this week's time capsule in world history. So let's get to it, and then we'll comment.
Hey, Internet friends. 3 days ago, Hurricane Helene, a Category 4 hurricane, swept across Florida's Big Bend like an uninvited guest, leaving an unimaginable trail of destruction, traveling all the way up to southern Appalachia, where they don't get much hurricane action, to be honest. But Helene flooded the streets of Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, the Carolinas, parts of Virginia, making the rivers rise almost instantly, causing dam failures, mudslides, landslides, and biblical-style floods across Appalachia. Major roadways are down, cell phone service is non-existent, power is out for the foreseeable future, and many of these places are now only accessible by air. So the coverage of this catastrophe hasn't even begun. There are still entire towns underwater and countless people whose families are still searching for them. And I don't know, maybe it's because I was in the Smoky Mountains just last week, but the MSM coverage of this disaster is making me so mad. The only thing I've seen them talk about is Asheville, North Carolina. because people have heard of Asheville. They visited Asheville. The Biltmore Vanderbilt estate is there. It's a North Carolina icon, but there's so much more to North Carolina mountains than Asheville. And of course, other places are affected. There's tons of little towns in southern lower Appalachia that have been totally destroyed. And because Appalachia was already one of the poorest regions in the USA, most of these folks couldn't have evacuated even if they wanted to. So let's discuss what the media won't tell you about Hurricane Helene's devastation in lower Appalachia. Like I said, many of these mountain towns along Hurricane Helene's path of destruction are only accessible by air at the moment because they're either still underwater or the major roads and highways into these towns have been completely destroyed. And you'd think that the federal government would be sending these people all kinds of help, but a huge bulk of the relief, in addition to, of course, first responders and linemen and all these excellent people who dropped what they were doing to help, has been from private citizens flying in with helicopters at their own expense and at their own risk, administering aid and supplies, just trying to give help where it's needed. It's kind of strange because in the last month, Ukraine received $8 billion of U.S. military aid, otherwise known as U.S. tax dollars, and Israel received about $8.7 billion in U.S. military aid over last month. But here's President Biden, who I don't even register as an alive person. I don't even think of him being the president. In my mind, he's dead. Speaking about Ukraine aid and Hurricane Helene aid just 3 days apart from each other.
I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance.
I really don't think y'all understand how bad it is in the Southeast right now. We have towns that don't exist anymore. Chimney Rock is gone. The city of Asheville is cut off from the world. This is not an exaggeration. All the bridges leading into the city have been washed away. They have no food, no power, no water, no internet, no cell service. They don't even have radio. I've been running the generator for the last 3 days, and we're starting to run out of gas. And this is on Highway 123 heading from Aisley to Greenville. And this was a 1 mile long line to get gas because they were the only people we knew around that had gas left. We got all the way to the end and they were out. They had no gas. We checked every gas station in Pickens and Easley and Liberty. Nothing.
If the federal government can't step up for times like these, why are we funding it? Dams are collapsing, our critical infrastructure is crumbling, but Ukraine and Israel both got $8 billion in taxpayer money from our rat politicians. But wait, our money isn't the only thing going to lands to which most of us will never travel, to be dispersed to people most of us will never interact with, never meet, while our fellow Americans suffer. Our National Guard, many of them are currently deployed to the Middle East on Operation Spartan Shield. Just within the last month, I think it was 700 Tennessee National Guard members have been deployed to Kuwait. In Kuwait. They are in Kuwait. In Kuwait, internet friends. Not in Tennessee National Guard. Tennessee National Guard. I'm sorry, but is this not just like hair-pullingly bizarre, pants on head, upside down world? A good portion of them are not in Tennessee helping their own nation and their own people. And of course, they're not the only state National Guard overseas. There's a running list, and I'll put it up on the screen. It will shock you. What cannot be understated is how we don't even have a fraction of the real picture here. The actual numbers of missing and dead, the real devastation. People who have lost everything, their homes, their cars, their pets, their family. I don't want to downplay any of it, and I don't want to be disrespectful to people who are still out there waiting for help. But also something people really aren't considering are the agricultural and economic consequences of such a disaster in this region. Generational farms, lost, gone. So many livestock, dead. Complete orchards and crops, washed away. Cotton, peanuts, pecans, meat, dairy, these are all products of this region. And that production has halted because for one thing, there's no power. And for another thing, pecan trees take decades to produce. Orchards take many years to establish, you get the idea. So the economic cost will be huge.
Food prices nationwide will skyrocket. The supply chain will surely be affected. Not to mention, the means to transport these items have been destroyed in this storm, in this hurricane. Think railroads, highways. Yes, this will impact every hardworking American. Countless numbers of farms and small businesses have been destroyed. Transportation companies have been swept away in the waters. So my analysis is that this problem is going to be exacerbated potentially by two factors. The first one being that, based on the latest information available up to September 30th, there is a developing weather system of interest in the Gulf of Mexico region. This system has a medium chance of forming into a tropical depression or storm as it moves northwestward into the Gulf of Mexico and potentially around the middle to latter part of this week, following the same path as Helene. And listen, these towns and these dams can't handle even a little bit more water. No more rain. Even if it's half as bad as Helene, it's too much. The second factor is the imminent port strikes. I'm paraphrasing as I read, but due to unresolved contract negotiations, the International Longshoremen's Association, which represents 45,000 East and Gulf Coast dock workers, will strike at midnight on October 1st, 2024, which is about 5 hours from now. This walkout, which might cost the economy billions daily, wants a large wage hike in port automation limits. Both parties have failed to reach an agreement despite last-minute efforts, causing supply chain disruptions that could affect perishable goods, automotive imports, and trade. And it says possibly affecting inflation and the economy before the presidential election. So its impact on goods ranges from food like fruits, bananas, cherries, meat, fish, cheese, electronics, furniture, and home improvement products, auto parts, beer, wine, and spirits, and with the potential impact of $5 billion daily from the strike, the economy will inevitably suffer, meaning real people and working class will suffer. But I also can't hardly blame people for wanting higher wages. Especially when everything is so expensive, housing is unaffordable, a basic cart of groceries is luxury price. You know, I can't hardly blame them. But with the port strike plus the major supply route gone, yeah, you know what I'm getting at here. Calmly go get what you need and maybe get some cash out. Because I will tell y'all this, okay? This is important and nobody is talking about it. A big grocery store around here in North Georgia is called Ingles, and Ingles is headquartered out of Asheville, North Carolina. Of course, their systems got taken down in the hurricane in Asheville, which runs all the grocery stores throughout the South. So our Ingles in Cartersville, Georgia, is not selling gas right now. They aren't filling prescriptions, and they're only taking cash. No debit card, no credit card, no EBT, no Bitcoin. So your digital currency in times of disaster is all but useless. Just saying, from my own observations, this is happening 5 minutes away from me and we barely have any storm damage. Also, side note, make sure your homeowner's policy is up to date. This entire Southern saga is what historians write chapters about, the never-ending chaos that led to the end of an empire. I hope we aren't at our end, but I'm just saying, the more chaos there is, the more desperation there is. The more the supply chain buckles, the more people can't get what they need. That's when people start rioting and looting, which the government would love because they can declare martial law and postpone elections and whatnot. A lot of people always say stuff like that. They cry wolf and they are alarmist for clickbait or whatever, but I actually am just wondering, when do we call it? What do you think, internet friends? You know, I always look forward to reading your comments. I hope you were not affected by this hurricane.
We're halfway down the mountain. The reservoir is closer to the top, and it was going to come down, and then but we couldn't get out of our street because trees were down. We had 17 minutes between the alert that said evacuate, mandatory evacuation, evacuate now, and then shelter in place, seek highest ground. We had 17 minutes to leave, and we couldn't, and there was nowhere to go, so we had to stay.
We got to think about getting out of here.
All right, what is probably going to end up being a really long video, is going to start off just a little differently, because there are people, there are Americans right now who are trapped in these flood-ridden areas of western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee that thousands of people are missing. We don't even know, we won't know for a while, like what's really going on, how many people are alive or dead. It's the stories that are coming out right now are insane, and I can't even wrap my mind around it. I'm actually really pissed off. But before we get into all of that, people in these areas right now are without power, they're without clean water, they don't have food, gas, medicine, supplies, things like diapers. They're stranded and they have nothing. And so I want to start off with just a couple of resources that might help people, because there's not a lot of information in central locations that people can access easily. So I try to find some stuff like that. I want to put it up front for the people who really need it. So the first thing that I found that I thought seemed very useful was up at Citizens Times. They've posted an interactive citizens emergency map, which has dots all over it. And if you switch to data view, it tells you things like where you can go to get water, where you can go to get food, emergency shelters that are open, places where you can charge a cell phone or get Wi-Fi, places where you can get a free meal, places where you can take a shower. There's lists here, has addresses, information about when that's happening. And so that's like 17 pages of stuff that people have provided here for people who are needing these resources. And I will put that link first. I'm going to make a list of links. I'm going to stick it in a pinned comment below. It'll be the top pinned comment. This is going to be the first link on it. Anybody you know that's in that area that needs help, you could send them this link, because it's just so much information of places where they can, take a shower or charge their phone or get something to eat or get water, which everyone is desperate for right now, or a meal. So I'm going to put that link first. The second thing that I think everyone needs to see, and it's pretty astounding. There's a Facebook group, and I wouldn't normally say, hey, go join Facebook. We were kicked off of Facebook years ago, and I don't recommend Facebook, and I never usually would, but I am now for this reason only. There is a missing persons group that has been set up for Eastern Tennessee and Western North Carolina due to the flood. It was set up 4 days ago, and it already has 66,000 members. There have been over 200 posts on here just today of people who are missing. It's a place where you can go and post a picture of your loved one or a name and information if you're trying to find somebody that you haven't heard from that lives in these areas that have been affected by this storm. There have been 2,100 posts just in the last 4 days on this group of people who are missing. It's insane. Thousands of people are missing right now that no one has heard from. They don't know if they're trapped. They don't know if they're hurt. They don't know what's going on. So that's one place you can go and join and post a picture. Another place is this Google document that's been set up, the Hurricane Helene People Finder. It's basically just a Google spreadsheet, but they have a form here that you can fill out. You can put the name of the person, where their last known location was of these states, and any additional details like their address or their license plate or any information you have about this person to try and find them. And then you can put your information so they can contact you. And they're basically just keeping up this color-coded spreadsheet of people who are missing, and that's in red, and people who are found. Although there is one on this list that's says deceased in yellow. They're updating this all the time, but there are over 2,500 names on this list. So again, thousands of people are missing. So if you're missing somebody and you go to this Facebook page and join it and put that person, and you go to this Google spreadsheet and put their name, you've now put that out there in the two places that I found that have the most people concentrated together trying to help each other locate their missing friends and family members in this situation.
Well, life is like a mountain railroad with an angel near my side. Just keep your hands upon the throttle and your eyes upon the rail.
Oh, I hope not.
We were not warned.
Whoa! Oh, shit!
Get in the house.
Oh, shit!
Go!
Just to give you an understanding of the devastation we're dealing with here. Chimney Rock's gone. Flowering Bridge is gone. And the road's gone.
Everything on the farm drowned. Couldn't get everything out. We managed to save one horse.
Leaving comments of, oh, why didn't they evacuate? Da, 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 da. I don't think you comprehend how quickly this happened. And these areas have never flooded like this before.
I don't think I've ever seen. Never seen downtown Boone flood like this. Look at that.
We have one way in and one way out. How are we supposed to flee if and when that bridge goes? It took our bridge. It took our driveway.
The amount of bridges that are out, the amount of landlocked, stranded people is unbelievable. Guys with me that have done it 30 years, and they've never seen anything like this.
It's been an incredibly apocalyptic weekend for all of us here.
The news is not even coming close to catching the true devastation. There are bodies that are floating down the river, babies.
They literally watched multiple neighbors die. One was hit by a tree, others were washed away. Literally, the house was floating away with people in it. They are in shock. They are traumatized.
It's not enough. What is being done is not enough. There's still plenty of people completely unaccounted for. Keep these locals in your prayers.
The destruction and devastation caused by this hurricane up in the mountainous areas of eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina it's beyond unprecedented. They're actually saying this is a 1,000-year weather event, but I think they're just slapping the number 1,000 on there because they want to put a really big number because they've never seen anything like this before.
We're looking at a 1,000-year rain event here.
These are areas where the roads are very narrow in places. Mass exodus probably wouldn't even have been possible if they could have done it in time, and they didn't have a lot of time in a lot of areas. If you pull up on this trying to get out, you're not going this way. And there might not be another road on the other side to get you somewhere, because you're going to get swept down a mountain. I don't think you can tell when people are criticizing that they don't really understand the geography of this region. You've got spotty reception service, so if they're sending out emergency alerts, people aren't probably getting them. And I've even seen meteorologists being quoted as saying, the messaging could have been stronger to warn people to get out, but we have to cut everyone some slack because what happened doesn't even make any sense. Okay, that's the level we're talking about. And the problem with leaving, that some people don't seem to realize at all, is that the government might prevent you from coming back. But we'll get to that momentarily. This Hurricane Helene came up into here and dumped 40 trillion gallons of water in a very short amount of time into areas that don't see water like that. And the water just had nowhere to go. And there are still mudslides happening. There's still flooding that has not receded yet. It's just too much water. It has to go somewhere. So you've got people, like I said, they're describing this as not just unprecedented, but apocalyptic. There are, depending on where you look, they're reporting, CBS News yesterday reported 131 deaths. Today, the New York Times is saying 183 in 6 states. Good Morning America said the death toll has now reached 200. They're not going to know for a long time how many people have perished in this, but thousands of people are missing. So it rained for several days before this area was hit, so it was already rained on, and then this thing came through and just dumped insane amounts of water. In some places, 18 inches of water got dumped in 12 hours. The highest number I saw for one little town was 31.33 inches of rain in Busick. So 31 inches of rain is unimaginable. I mean, this is a kind of place where people plan for self-sufficiency. They have had floods before, but not anything like this in known, recorded, modern American history. And it's been compared to the 1916 flood that happened in the area, but that comparison is that flood pales in comparison to this, actually. And it was pretty serious, too. I mean, the stories at the time coming out about that flood are very harrowing stories. You have just terrifying, horrible things like babies being pulled out of people's arms and stuff. But that flood was 22 inches of rain, and total for the entire area was 80 deaths. So we have more than doubled that number already. And again, people are still trapped up in here. Like there's no way to know how many people are missing. They don't even have a good number right now.
I can not even tell you how many families, even here outside of Charlotte, that are looking for their loved ones up in that area. No one knows anything.
If you go to certain platforms, there is picture after picture after picture of people that are missing and lost and people looking for their family members. And it is not okay.
There's no coordinated central location where that information is going. That's the thing. It's all done by citizens. It's definitely not happening through our government. So anyway, this is not the 1916 flood. This is something else entirely that has happened here.
I grew up here. I lived here, 30 years basically. So on and off, and I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen devastation like this. It's been flooded before, but this is completely insane.
It started that Wednesday, pouring down rain. It rained Wednesday, Thursday, and she came Friday. Everything she could move, she moved.
Whole house.
My car's gone.
I'm okay. It's okay.
Everything's gone.
It isn't just bridges that are washed out or roads that are washed away. Whole towns are gone. We've got upwards of almost 1 million people still without power as of today, just in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia alone. And the stories that are coming out of people being trapped in areas where there's no running water, they can't obviously flush toilets, you have elderly and disabled people who can't get around very easily. There are stories of children being found just abandoned in the woods, not abandoned, but their parents are nowhere to be found. Something must have happened to their parents because there's just children just in the woods. And that's before you get into the much darker stuff that the media isn't talking about.
How they're saying just a couple hundred people on the news and social media. He looked at me and just his face head kind of drooped, and he started choking up. I put my hand on his back and said, "Buddy, we're doing all we can do." He said, "I've talked to people and they're pulling people out of houses about an hour. Just they couldn't get out. The water took them in, trapped them in, then the silt filled in. They're there. You go down through there and there's just houses with big X's on them or check marks on them. I don't know what the X's mean. I don't want to know what the X's mean, but I'm hoping the check mark means that they're good, that there's nobody in there. It's horrible."
And so now we're going to get to a part of the video that is probably going to piss a lot of you off. It really pisses me off. I find what I'm about to say to you very unreal, because it, in the first sense anyway, what I'm about to tell you doesn't make any sense.
These people doing these rescue missions and saying, don't fly drones around the area, don't bring in donations that aren't approved. A lot of people are getting turned away for their donations. And something is afoot here.
But this is the kind of stuff that's going on, and I'm seeing it all over the place.
A formal press conference or something from either President Biden or Kamala Harris. I mean, how do you not say anything for 4 days? They've been stranded for 4 days, and this is the first we've heard from them at all. FEMA is not on the ground there.
Do you have any faith in the federal response here?
No.
So first of all, you had a woman talking about how FEMA, the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, was telling people not to send donations, not to volunteer to come in to help people.
Notification from FEMA. I'm guessing that's FEMA for Tennessee. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's supposed to be the disaster relief people, but they were like, "Do not donate your time. We don't want you to donate time unless we ask for you, and we don't want you to donate stuff to other people. You need to just donate money and stuff to us and get your instructions from us and listen to us." What?
And was telling people to just give cash donations, which a lot of people are saying, if you know what that's about, they put it into a fund. It doesn't necessarily go where you think it's supposed to.
So donate to our local churches, because they will make sure that the people that are need it will get it.
And people were saying this woman was making it up and it didn't sound true, but then I found the post from FEMA. They did say that. It's right there.
I was floored yesterday by how my community, which is a little over an hour away from the affected areas, showed up at donation sites with water and diapers and formula and some liquid IV. I mean, y'all brought all kind of things, bleach, vinegar. You are ready to help, and we're going to take more donations today, and we're so grateful for everything, because I'm going to get it into the hands of actual volunteers. And I was asking people, like, why are you bringing it to me? Some of y'all don't even know me. And they said, well, we don't trust the relief organizations anymore. Y'all, we have lost our organizations to grifters. We have lost our organizations to liars.
We pulled up to 2 different locations. We asked some sheriffs. We asked some other fire departments. They're all leading us to the command post, which is FEMA. They're not going to allow us to do anything.
The people are trying to help the people, and they're being turned away.
There are even stories coming out that people are being threatened with arrest. There was a civilian helicopter pilot who was going in on his own accord and pulling people out because people were writing to him to please come help them because he had posted on social media. And he claimed that he was threatened with arrest.
Multiple phone calls I've received like this, voicemails, text messages.
Stuff are being threatened with arrest.
Gave me instructions to come talk to you guys, that you guys have already gotten ample amount of time. That I don't know what she told you. I'm giving you guys a warning. That's it. Just please back up and leave. That's literally it.
Do you see us trying to get our stuff?
I got you. I don't know what you guys been doing. Again, this is.
I did.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Again, I don't know what you guys been doing. I'm just giving you guys a warning that we're trying to get people through. So if I have to come back out over here, like, I don't know, like, the jail is processing, all right? That's it. That's the last report.
So you're going to take us to jail.
Come here. Look, I'm not taking you to jail.
You're threatening to take me to jail.
Come here.
For trying to get our stuff off our property.
All right, well, as long as you give it in the warning, go ahead and go out to the parks, and if we need to get another officer out here once we get some extras, then we'll deal with it then.
You heard?
Thank you.
You heard?
Yeah, I heard her.
So you can be upset all you want. I'm giving you guys a warning. I get it. You guys are upset. I'm giving you guys a warning that if they have to come back out here, they probably have to escalate from there.
I guess they got to escalate it then.
Okay.
Because we're trying to get our shit.
We got Governor DeSantis of Florida, whose state got hit, sending extra stuff from Florida.
Florida, we have it handled. We got approved for the individual citizens, things we've wanted. We have what we need. I think most of the effort should be in Western North Carolina right now.
And people are saying the governor of Florida is doing more for them in Tennessee than their own governor is. And you also have Rep. Mills out of Florida.
We've got 5 different locations that we're looking at today. One location has 5 elderly. A couple of others have an 8-year-old and a mother.
He's been flying stuff in. He was on TV talking about where's FEMA. Everybody's been asking where's FEMA, where's the aid, why aren't they here, why aren't they helping?
No, actually, the American people are the ones who are leading the efforts. And so you can see now that there is a tremendous amount of people that's just stepped up. I've heard from others who said that they haven't heard or seen FEMA.
And there are allegations that people are being stopped from actually being able to save people and that it doesn't make any sense.
When I tell y'all I'm super frustrated at the moment is not a lie. For the past 48 hours, I had planned to go to East Tennessee, Irwin, Newport and all that tomorrow. And then I get a phone call and an email where we're being told to stand down. I've had emails where I've had a woman named Laura ask for help. Her brother got swept away. They have a video of him being swept away, and she's just asking for help to get him. And yet we're being told to stand down. Heard from these 2 people about how he went to take generators and supplies there, and he was turned down. The water, food, stuff like that, turned down. Why? You have people that really need things, and I get it. It's such a disarray. I understand this was all so fast, but at the end of the day, man, putting a halt to everything while there's people's lives at stake that are sitting out there somewhere that don't have anything, that may be trapped, may be hurt, and you're asking people to stand down that have the capabilities to help somebody, it doesn't make sense to me.
There's even a soldier that's putting out videos, and it's almost like what she's saying is in a very obviously coded language that anyone can get if you just listen to what she's actually saying.
People are trying to figure out why we can't get there. The only way there is through air. Roads are destroyed. There's landslides, mudslides everywhere. Safest way and the only way we can get there is by flight. Not that many helicopters. I think right now we have 10, but you got to think how many people are missing. And there's certain things I cannot say just because. But take that into account. There's a lot of people missing, and it's day, I think, 4 or 5. I have sleep deprivation. I can't think. But it's been a couple of days. People were without food and without water. I think you can only go 2 days without water. And that is if you were healthy. Not if you're a child. Not if you're an old lady or old person. Keep that in account.
Where she says, I'm as frustrated as you are, but we can only do what we've been ordered to do.
They're not going to let us go on foot. They're not going to. I don't know why. They're just... listen, I'm literally learning and I'm telling y'all or trying to tell y'all because I can't even
can tell y'all everything. People are asking why don't we use animals or four-wheelers and stuff like that. They have to approve of whatever that is. They have to approve it before we're able to do it. Does that make any sense? If they don't approve it, we cannot do it. Then again, I know I sound aggressive, but I am frustrated with y'all, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to level with you. We're only doing what we're allowed to do and what we're told to do. We cannot do anything other than that. Or the consequences will vary. I understand that North Carolina and everywhere is upset with us. I get it. There's nothing I can do. There's literally nothing I can do.
And there's a lot of people asking where the military helicopters are. Where's all the response?
That's North Carolina over there. I'm in Tennessee. If the government really wanted to help, dude, there would be helicopters and you know, military just everywhere. There's none. There's none. What is going on?
The only thing I need from this video is helicopters. If I have helicopters, I can save lives. Yesterday, when I was at the Asheville airport refueling, which, by the way, the civilian is paying all this out of his own pocket. He's not even looking for a reimbursement. I think we did 4 refuelings yesterday. And that was like just in half a day's work. We're in Asheville, and I saw 2 Air Force Helicopter 60s. And I knew they were PJs just looking at them. And I went up to them, I'm like, hey, guys, like, what are y'all doing? And like, this is what you need to be doing. This is how I'm finding people. And they're like, we can't go. We're waiting on Title 10 orders. And I'm like, what? They can't get any authority. There's military helicopters all over here sitting on the ground, and they can't do nothing. Even my JSOC boys in Fayetteville, they can't get orders to come out here. It is just the most disgusting thing, and they're killing these people. And I don't know why they're doing it. I don't know what kind of conspiracy. I've heard so many things, whatever you want to come up with, but they are literally allowing these people to die in the mountains right now because we can't get helicopters.
And it wasn't until October 2nd, that Biden finally approved 1,000 soldiers, I think. I mean, keep in mind, this area that's affected is the size of Massachusetts, and he just now, days after the fact, just now approved 1,000 soldiers.
When the first emergency declarations came down, there was only 11 counties in that. A lot of people were outraged, including me, because there was such devastation in up to 90 counties. So we called the White House.
But basically, all of the relief efforts that have been going on have been by civilians, civilian airplanes, civilian helicopters, civilian rescue vehicles, civilian tractors and dozers, and any kind of rescue and relief has all been done by civilians.
On Saturday, I was able to get into Asheville. I have a 2-wheel drive vehicle. I do not possess helicopters or giant military bulldozers or bridge layers, just a 2-wheel drive vehicle, and I got into Asheville. It took me 6 hours. I had to care because I was going in to help people. I'm not quite sure how a government that has the biggest military on the planet can't figure it out. I'm not quite sure why that same government that has all the information gathering techniques that it has and satellites is telling people there's still no way to get into the area.
They're not going to let us go on foot. They're not going to.
And this is extra pathetic. What I'm about to say is extra pathetic. And I never thought I'd be saying this ever, like in the history of time. But Hurricane Katrina, I mean, it has gone down in history as one of the worst responses. There were a lot of atrocities that happened in the responses. There were a lot of things that were being done that were absolutely not okay. But one of the things that was done is they were already calling out Coast Guard and positioning people before that hurricane ever even got to the coast. They already had military in position. Within days, they had deployed tens of thousands of Guard and soldiers into that area. There were 30,000 National Guard troops deployed into that area for relief by September 2nd. Ironically, the North Carolina National Guard was sent down there, along with 3,500 soldiers out of the 82nd Airborne Division of Fort Bragg in North Carolina. They went down to New Orleans, along with 30 helicopters.
There's military helicopters all over here sitting on the ground, and they can't do nothing.
Which were prepared to deploy on short notice. They had 24,000 troops on the ground in Louisiana and Mississippi. I actually did a little more digging, and it's actually even more troops than that article mentioned, because they sent people out from the Army, the Marines. They sent out, they quoted a spokeswoman for the 82nd Airborne who said that at least 5,000 from her division would be sent. So it's even more. In fact, Lieutenant General Stephen Blum, chief of the National Guard Bureau, was quoted as saying they would send 10,000 more previously unplanned National Guard, bringing the total up to 40,000. So they sent 40,000 National Guard and many more Army units, Marine units. The point I'm trying to make is they sent so many military to assist after Katrina to those areas. Newspapers like the Miami Herald were running headlines, "Storm deployments prompt fears of strained forces," as if they were sending so many people because there was a war in the Middle East going on at the time of this. So that's how many, right? That's how many were sent. Now, why don't you compare that response to the response of 6,500 National Guard members and 1,000 active duty troops? Why don't you compare that to the fact that this storm hit that area Friday, September 27th, it hit that area. On Sunday, September 29th, North Carolina Governor Ray Cooper was quoted at a press conference as saying,
"More than 500 North Carolina National Guard members are now working alongside local emergency responders, conducting search and rescue missions, delivering needed supplies, and working to restore infrastructure."
More than 500?
The North Carolina National Guard has increased to over 500 soldiers and airmen and over 200 vehicles.
Meanwhile, right next door, in Tennessee, which was also greatly impacted, they just sent more than 700 National Guard to the Middle East.
Their own are drowning and you deployed troops to Kuwait? Like, what is going on?
You see the problem here? This is a horrifying disaster. It's now being called the second worst hurricane to hit since Katrina. And they didn't just send them to the Middle East. They did it after the storm hit. They deployed on Saturday. This storm hit on Friday. This is shameful. This is absolutely shameful. They're reporting now nearly 1,000 active duty troops. Nearly 1,000? I thought it was 1,000. Are joining 6,500 National Guard members from 15 states. 6,500. So you've got maybe 7,500. There were 25,000 Guard and active duty already on standby before Katrina ever hit land. That was what was being reported at the time. And that's Hurricane Katrina, which is, again, has gone down in history as one of the most botched, worst responses to a natural disaster that ever occurred. But they did that much. They haven't done hard. Like, what are they doing with this? And if you're thinking it's because New Orleans had more people at the time, there was under 1 million people in New Orleans in 2005 population. Western North Carolina, by contrast, the 23 most commonly associated counties in the 2020 census had well over 1 million people. So there's a lot of people just in Western North Carolina alone. And you have to remember, Eastern Tennessee also very much affected. South Carolina also affected. Georgia, Florida, all these other places have also been affected. But this particular area where these people are still trapped and everything, there's a huge amount of people living in those areas. It's just they're spread out in this mountainous area, but there's a lot of people there. So this is 11% of North Carolina's total population is living in that area. And Biden just now, October 2nd, is saying he will approve 1,000 troops. So right after their family members get put through this and they join the National Guard, probably, I don't know, I'm just guessing, to step up and be able to protect their family and neighbors and friends and communities and state if something like this were to happen. Now they're being sent on the other side of the world, I guess, to protect foreign countries, obviously not their own people in their own country, which is not what the National Guard, by the way, was created to do ever. That is supposed to be our militia. That is not created to be sent overseas to fight foreign banker wars in other places. That is not what that is for. And everybody knows it, except for the people who are running things in the most corrupt ways possible. So this is insanity. Do you see the difference here? Something is not at all adding up here in any way.
Like I said, there are literally people still in floods right now that cannot get out. There are people the people that did survive, they are in shock. They are traumatized. They watch their family members. They watch their neighbors die. We need help desperately.
And people are very angry.
So you're just going to give billions was just given to Ukraine, but he can't help us here in North Carolina?
I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet.
Because it seems like this government has resources for everywhere else on Earth right now, except for its own people. We have Mayorkas now coming out saying FEMA doesn't have enough funds for the rest of the hurricane season now.
Quote, "We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season."
And then, right on cue, because I guess they're letting her pretend to be the president now, Kamala Harris comes out yesterday and says people affected by this will get a $750 check.
And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met.
Meanwhile, I guess the people in the Lahaina are like, where's my $50? I mean, this is 2024 money. It's insulting. It's insane.
What got me fired up about this was yesterday, me and my team did the rescue of that 11-day-old baby. All these government officials and social media, they're showing that video, that pictures and video of that rescue and claiming that like they have some like government help with that. Even USA, I think it was USA Today, wrote an article about it saying it was a Florida National Guard that went and got it, like with a helicopter. No, it was me, my buddy Charlie, and a civilian named Zeb with his own personal helicopter out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Like, without that civilian, that baby would be dead. And the old lady we went and rescued after that, she'd be dead too because she had 1 day left of oxygen.
Let's recap. Not to read between this lady's lines or anything, but it's not like she's veiling what she's saying all that hard. She's straight saying they can't go in because they haven't been given the clearance to do so, and everything in the military requires orders first before you can just do anything. You can't just act of your own accord.
Trying to level with you. We're only doing what we're allowed to do and what we're told to do. We cannot do anything other than that. They're not going to let us go on foot. They're not going to. I don't know why. They're just... listen.
And then she's letting everyone know very specifically how many days it takes for somebody to die without water.
It's been a couple of days. People were without food and without water. I think you can only go 2 days without water. And that is if you were healthy. Not if you're a child. Not if you're an old lady or old person. Keep that in account.
Add that together. This is very simple math she's laying out here. Add that together with how many days after this thing happened that it took for our president to finally sign off on an order to send 1,000 troops, to activate 1,000 troops and 6,500 guard. So you're telling me that for Hurricane Katrina, they had Coast Guard pre-positioned, they had 82nd Airborne out there, which is trained to deploy anywhere in the world within 18 hours to make it anywhere on Earth in less than a day. It's right there in the state because it comes from the base in the state. Not letting them deploy. Military helicopters sitting all around on the ground, not letting them go up in the air for 5 days. That's what we're saying right now. To an area geographically that has well over 1 million people in it. And these counties have been decimated. Some of them are still underwater. There's mudslides still happening. People are trapped. Roads are gone. Bridges are gone. And you're telling me, do this math. Just everyone do the math right now. You can't really arrive at any other conclusion, can you? It's horrible. This is horrifying. It really is. It's really horrifying.
We know it's public. We know all the money that was just sent to Ukraine. Are you kidding me? How much money is it going to take to rebuild these mountains? And there's no amount of money that you can put on these people's lives. Like, what is going on? I don't understand.
This is not incompetence, okay? Incompetence suggests that somebody's just too stupid. I do not believe at this point, after everything that I have seen, researching for this and watching hours of video of people talking about what's going on, and I do not believe that it is physically or mentally possible for anyone to be this incompetent. This is not incompetence. This is something else. I posted something earlier today on X because I was trying to put together a list of resources that will actually, if you donate and you want to help people out in the affected areas, these resources will actually get to people on the ground, because there's a lot of fishy bullshit that's going on. I did post this and I asked people, if you've got a source that's actually a good source that's helping people right now, where the donation will make a difference, please post that, basically, because I want to give people, good, legitimate sources where if they give them the money, it's not just some BS that's going to go to like fees and salaries of people and things like that, and not actually just go help people on the actual ground. And so these are the ones that people overwhelmingly said were helping people and were good. And the first one that everyone that was mentioned by multiple people is Samaritan's Purse, which is a Christian organization out of Boone, North Carolina. And they've been sending out trucks filled with supplies, disaster relief. They've gone to Florida, they've gone to Georgia. They're obviously helping in North Carolina too. And so they have a donation thing set up on their website where people can give money. There's also a place where people can sign up to volunteer. The second group that was mentioned consistently is the United Cajun Navy. They were mentioned multiple times. This group is flying in there. They're doing search and rescue. They're also transporting oxygen and insulin. They're bringing Starlinks to hospitals, all kinds of stuff that they're doing. And so they have a page set up here where you can donate for that. There's also Grindstone Ministries, which was mentioned multiple times. There's a page set up for them to donate. There's also the Y'all Squad mentioned multiple times.
What is going on, guys? Caleb Beecham here, Operations Director for the Y'all Squad. I'm currently back in central Iowa after delivering our first of possibly many loads down to eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina. On that truck, we had shovels, rakes, chainsaws, brooms, mops, toiletries, really anything you think we could need right after a disaster. We brought it.
There's also the 118th. They've got people on the ground. They're in multiple states. They're doing stuff. They have a Give, Send, Go that they've set up. Operation Airdrop, which is volunteer pilots that are flying things into places where the roads have been washed out. And then finally, Mountain Mule Packer Ranch was also mentioned. They've got mules and they're loading equipment onto mules and walking it in that way. Because, again, like I said, can't get in there with the roads the way they are. I mean, there's like in some areas, there's only one road and it's iffy. And so they're trying to get supplies in there any way they can. So those are the main resources that people mentioned if you want to donate to try to help out. All right, so I'm cutting in here. I'm going to go ahead and put this up as part 1, and this is going to be continued because we have a whole other side of what's going on that you guys need to see. But I need to go ahead and get what I have up now so this information can get out. I'm actually kind of getting swamped over here. We're both getting kind of swamped over here with stuff. So I just want to go ahead and put up what I have so far. And then Aaron's been in the background researching a whole other aspect and angle to this that I think is very important for everyone to consider. Also, there's a lot of conspiracies going around that I think should be taken with a grain of salt until receipts can be shown, because there's some people making some pretty tall claims without a whole lot of evidence, and people are just taking it at face value. And I'm really not sure that's helpful right now when you consider the levels of pain and heartbreak and devastation that are on this ground. We do not need to be making stuff up. It's already bad enough as it is. So We have truestreammedia.com up if people want to contact us to send, pictures, video, information, whatever you need. We've got our contact information's up there. My DMs are open on X, and I will put that whole list of links below, and this is to be continued. I love you guys. Stay safe out there. Hug your loved ones, because you never know. You just never know.
So we now know FEMA is insolvent. It's insolvent. They've given all the money away for these disasters to people that are non-citizen. You are going to be facing winter very soon if you're in these mountains. This is a dire situation. Politicians have finally been caught with their hands in the cookie jar because of the internet. We were able to research this thing, and the transparency of this is terrible. Watch these videos, and I'm going to help you figure out what's going on. I want you to listen to what she's got to say right here. This is very important, personal experience.
The airport.
Watch this.
We picked up a
Put it right here.
flight of pediatric medical supplies that were brought in and are going to North Asheville. We were sitting in the private portion of the airport, and we got to overhear an awful lot. The Army pilots, the Navy pilots, hospital representatives, there was a lot of chatter. While we were there, a private jet landed and 4 FEMA representatives got off. Four people off of a private jet. Come to find out, and you're not going to hear this, so let me tell you. Come to find out, Mission Hospital was told, a private hospital, that they are going to go ahead and be the morgue center for body recovery. All of the Army Chinook helicopters you're seeing flying overhead, they are doing body recovery. FEMA said, and you can take this as a direct quote, said that they are too tied up at the border to send any more representatives. Yeah, at the border. So anyhow, I guess border control trumps whatever's going on here. So they told Mission Hospital they are not sending refrigerated trucks so that they can stack the bodies up. And we also overheard that whatever fatality numbers you are hearing, and this is a quote, go ahead and add a couple of zeros. So FEMA's too busy with the border. A private hospital and the Army are going to take over body recovery, and private individuals with their private helicopters and their private planes are the ones who are flying in supplies. I was at Hangar 10. I was picking up supplies. There was a stack for the Cajun Navy. There was a stack that looked like it was ASPCA. These are all being sent by private individuals. FEMA is doing nothing. Go ahead and share that.
So this next one is even more weird, and there's just things that just don't add up. And check out what he has to say.
Carolina, you deserve to hear this. I'm a truck driver, all right? I have a 53-foot step deck. I've been trucking for about 2.5 years. I have a YouTube channel. You can verify that on Babyline Hotshot. Usually in a disastrous situation, it is payday for truckers. We look for that hurricane. We look for that ice storm. There's generators coming to you. There's stuff coming out of military bases. There's excavators, skid steers, bulldozers, tree trimming equipment, pumps, like water pumps to pump water out of places that have been flooded. There's no loads on the load board coming to you within 125 miles of Asheville. It's called Truck Stop. This is where I find all my loads. Chicago, Illinois, up at the top. Within 250 miles of Chicago is where I'm going to pick up. The second is the destination. So it goes origin, destination. Watch. See? Drop-off location. Let's do city. North Carolina. Click it. Boom. All right. These are all $1.40 a mile loads, $1.39. That was posted yesterday. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing. These are loads that you wouldn't even, nobody's taking them. They're just on the load board. They've been on there since yesterday. You can see, right? Let's type in a different city. That's from Chicago. Maybe Tennessee, maybe Nashville is closer, and they'd send resources from Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee, within 250 miles of Nashville, to Asheville, North Carolina, within 125 miles. Let's see, that's it. That's all the loads. That's all the loads that are 28,000 pounds in less. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I mean, what the hell's going on here? I had brokers call me and tell me, Stu, have you seen any loads going to Asheville or like anywhere around the Carolinas, South Carolina, Georgia? Is there any like FEMA loads? There's none. Zero. He's been a broker for 6 years. And he's talking to other brokers, they're saying the same thing. What's going on, guys?
Where was the transparency in any of this? There was none. And now they're trying to cover it up. They're caught. And now they're starting to launch congressional inquiries on where is all the aid? Why was it stopped? Why was it halted? I've told you in the videos prior to this why it was halted. And because of the rural areas that it's in, they thought they were going to be able to cover it up. And the internet and everybody that just banded together and sent me stuff, sent stuff on Twitter. You can follow me at Jack Motley Live on Twitter. They said, you know, we've had enough. And here's the truth. And the media has spun it, and they're saying that everything was done that could be done. That's not true. I've proved to you the government has the ability to fix this. They could have provided aid immediately, and they have not. Hold these politicians accountable. I mean, we're in a situation right now where the civilians are out there, just the normal people are helping each other to their left and the right, delivering supplies, goods, and people are just searching for information. The amount of comments that have come through on my last few videos where I've talked about this it's staggering to see. People have a thirst for information, and nobody trusts the media anymore, and rightfully so. After going through hurricane after hurricane, Ivan, Katrina, Opal, Aaron, Sally. Recently, we went through Sally, and it was a terrible experience. I mean, it came right up that road right there and destroyed everybody's life. I think she's right about the Army looking for bodies, and I think they have directed a lot of the resupply to the civilian side. I think a lot of these sheriff's departments are overwhelmed. Search and rescue overwhelmed sheerly by the ability to move around the map. Without having airlift at the Army level, being able to bounce around the map, you're going to see a lot of these people. The scheme and maneuver, the ability to move around the map is going to be the hardest part. Saw this in Afghanistan. If you have Army, logistical, infantry background, put it in the comments down below what the Army's ability was to bounce around RC East Afghanistan, or even in the mountains up in north of Mosul, or like anywhere around a lot of these really, really desolate areas in Afghanistan. And you'll like comment down below. An entire division in the United States Army called 10th Mountain, okay? They specialize in mountain warfare, mountain logistics, everything to do with the mountain. And these guys could be on top of that mountain tomorrow directing exactly how this needs to be done. I'm not trying to belittle any of the sheriff's departments or any of the local areas. I'm just saying there are professionals that are just hours away that the government could call in and fix this situation. It was boggling. Just yesterday, they interviewed President Biden, and here's what he said.
What does the storm zone need, Mr. President?
Okay.
What are the states in the storm zone? What do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about. They're getting everything they need. They're very happy across the board.
He didn't even know which storm. I mean, to people like us in the South, these storms destroyed lives on the Gulf Coast of Florida, all the way up Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee. People's homes are gone. Everything they have in this world is devastated. And now we're seeing the wholesalers come in asking to buy their properties, pennies on the dollar. The corporations are going to come in and try to get their lands for penny on the dollar, many of which they inherited. And when you're staring at complete catastrophic event, you're wondering, like, do I just sell and move out? Please don't. Please don't allow them to take your properties pennies on the dollar. Ask questions. Go down these rabbit holes of why are they wanting to be here. The ore in the North Carolina mountains is worth a crazy amount of money. Don't take my word for it. Start Googling. Where's all this quartz going? Where's all this lithium going? Why do they want to mine it? What kind of mines are coming in here? And what does it have to do with Taiwan? What does it have to do with chip making, semiconductor making? There is a big market for the area of Asheville, just north of it, west of it, east of it. These mountains are worth a fortune, and they're going to try to buy them for pennies on the dollar. Make sure everybody around you, y'all understand there's a reason why there's roadblocks of this aid.
A woman and her husband left their home, came back the next day and found they had 15 cats, 5 dogs, and a father-in-law, and found them all dead except for 4 cats. And the story was hard to hear. But it's the look in her eyes that I can't forget. Last night, somebody was at the river and just looking at the destruction and cars upside down, and saw Halloween costumes floating down a river. And then she saw faces and realized they weren't costumes. She said, I've seen bodies and I'm not okay with that. And then somebody called and said, when is somebody going to come collect all the bodies that have piled up along the embankment of the river? And then a man called saying, I need 911 at my house. And somebody said, why? Are you okay? And he said, yes, I'm okay. But I opened my front door, and there are several bodies in my front yard. This is the stuff I'm having a hard time with. Because I want to make it better for everybody, and I can't do anything. So anyway, these tears aren't about us, and I didn't mean to cry, but I can't talk about this without this. And I'm sure because the emotional stress that we're under right now is beyond anything we've
they need and deserve. There's also some safety issues that come up. For example, temporary flight restrictions to make sure that the airspace is clear for any flights or drone activity that might be involved.
I think that's Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg explaining why the government doesn't need to fly its helicopters right now, but also needs the airspace to be cleared so they don't have to fly their helicopters right now. And I feel like even if we listen to what he has to say, we're probably not going to believe it at this point. Scott, what did you think of the atrocious nature of those samplings of this week's news?
Yeah, man, it's just really shocking. I mean, just going down the list of stuff I kind of observed, it's just in the very beginning, I was looking up, okay, so what is like the estimate of the total number of residences that are uninhabitable? You know, I mean, whether it's flooding, like, you know, water damage or just completely wiped away. They said about 400,000 homes, rough estimate. And that's just like high end. It said 200 to 400,000. So I said, okay, so you just sent you're bragging about 2.4 billion to Ukraine. So let's divide that by 400,000. So that's roughly 6,000 per person. So that would help.
That gets recovery started for the next couple of weeks at least.
Exactly. For a few weeks. That gets a few people in the clear for a few weeks. So, you know, and this is harvest season, you know what I mean? And so these are very rural agricultural areas. And so this is obviously going to affect us down the road, you know, whether it's food prices or just straight shortages. You know, there was a lot of agriculture that we're just not going to have access to probably here, especially in this region. I mean, both your and my region, you know, probably will be affected by that. So the thought occurred to me. I'm like, okay, so when's the cutoff for voter registration in North Carolina? And it's next Friday, the 11th, right? So, I really doubt that many of these people's main priority is registering to vote or getting their ballots in or anything like that. That's really not something that they're too concerned about. And, they'll probably make them show ID to vote, and they'll be like, wait a minute, but I lost my wallet in the flood, right? Or something something to that effect. So that's very interesting. And then the insurance thing is mind blowing. I'm just, looking through all this. It says 99% of homeowners who experience flooding are not covered outside of the Florida area. I don't know how accurate that is, but it's like only about 4% of U.S. homes have flood insurance, according to FEMA. So if you're like in an area like some of these people, I maybe had not estimated that they were in like a severe flood zone risk type area. And so, people are just going to be left with nothing, man. Like, it's just like in the majority of these situations, I would guess that people are going to be left with nothing. Now, here's a funny anecdote. So I did some repairs on a house that's right on a river. Okay. Right on a river. Like the one house that I went to, I fixed this lady's deck and part of her dock going out into the river. So it's like literally on a river to the point where she has a dock. Now, her next door neighbor's house is up on these stilts. And she told me that the river had flooded like many years ago, and when that house got flooded, the insurance company said, "Oh, sorry, you didn't have the right type of flood insurance." And they're like, "Motherfucker, I live right on a river. Why would you not sell me the right type of flood insurance?" You know what I'm saying? And so when they rebuilt, they built it up on stilts, and they're like, "What is wrong with you, dude?" So it's just like the insurance companies are not our friend in these situations. And it's just absolutely just heartbreaking. And then, oh my God. And just, insult to injury, like Biden being like, what storm are you talking about? Oh no, everybody's happy. They got everything they need. No worries, guys. Go back to sleep.
What do you think the budget is for these places? Like Florida, we could probably look it up. What's the budget? What's it cost Florida when they have one of these storms? Because like the idea would be there's infrastructure damage.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be that, but we don't also need the human cost to these equations, right? Yeah. And so I reckon for $1,500 each state like this, not all states have this type of scenario. They have different ones like tornadoes and stuff. But like for Florida, or anywhere in a hurricane zone, what would you want? You want first aid, you want some tarps for shelter, you need a water filter, a Jackery solar battery gizmo, and 3 radios. I bet as a state, I could get a deal on all that stuff, $1,000, $1,500, and then all of my citizens in that state have what they need to support each other. Now, you could also have like neighborhood packs, right? So not everyone gets the same things. This person's got propane lanterns, this person's got, and you'd have to like work together, but you could not be so in need. And that would be a good use of tax. If we're going to have taxation as theft as the thing, can we get it so that we can get taken care of during that process and not be not expelled, but like expunged from the record of human beingness? These people are dying.
Yeah.
So for want of things that are available and are affordable, especially by governments that waste billions of dollars, right? I bet we could cut some waste and pay for that stuff. It pays for itself right there. And then other governors would want to follow suit and say, hey, I'm in Nebraska. How about everyone has like some sort of storm shelter or whatever you need in those situations, right? Mm-hmm. You could tax write-off all this stuff. You get a tax write-off on anything that's hurricane prep or whatever the natural disaster in your area, wildfire prep, these sort of things, right? But it doesn't seem like the people running this place have the interest to like preserve this place, almost like they're running it into the ground on purpose, like we're in the middle of Goodfellas where they burn down the bamboo lounge and then claim the insurance money. Oh, wait, that was 9/11. It was like a similar thing. Anyway.
Yeah. And just to put it in perspective here, so it says like estimates say around 30 billion. This doesn't factor in the human costs or anything, but just in actual damages, about $30 billion in damages. Okay. Now, just to put that into perspective, the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act was $883 billion. So for 3% of what we spend on the military, you could just write a check and fix the problem tomorrow.
Right. We could also end homelessness and hunger if we're going to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
What political party has the obvious solutions as their platform? Anyone claim these things yet? Because we could probably make up a political party, have a platform that makes way more sense than what they have, and ungame the game.
Yep. Yeah, they could fix this tomorrow with 3.4% of the military budget. Just done deal, folks.
Unfortunately, they're trying to start World War III. I don't think they're going to be able to cut that military budget.
No, not at all. Not even by 3%. And you think that any like actual politician that would care about the people, or if there's any political party that wanted to win some victories, that is such an easy win right there. I mean, obviously there's so much red tape and hoops you'd have to jump through to get something like that implemented. But if someone were just to come out with something like that, that like really, I mean, that would be a winner right there. But nobody lifts a finger for that, man. It's all a sham. Politics is entertainment, people. That's it. And when you need the government and when you absolutely need them, this is what you get. You can't rely on clowns and actors when your life depends on it. You got to do it yourself, man. 100%.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures. They're hosting videos. They're maybe even doing Q&As. And these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come